Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Chapin turns around and hands it off to Quaylen Jones. He's got room into the end zone. Quaylen Jones!
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Remember, Notre Dame has been very good at getting a hand on these punts. And this one is blocked once again, and the Irish have it. Botello gets a hand on it. Prince Collie has the football, and into the end zone goes Collie.
Sikkim 365 Radio is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
For the Horned Frogs, Davis fielded at the 16, trying to get outside, and does with a little running room. Hits the sideline, down the sideline. Darius Davis with a convoy in front of him. Needs a block, cuts it back. Darius Davis, double D, touchdown Horned Frogs, 82 yards.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Travis gonna go deep, has a man, and in stride, it is Pokey Wilson. Knowles strike first.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And good afternoon. It is a Monday after yet another weekend of evidence in college football, even the start of the men's basketball season, where Baylor today rolled as you would expect against Mississippi Valley State. We'll also have Kendall Count on later on today to discuss what he saw and just dissect the game that Baylor was supposed to win in a blowout, and they did. So we have the Big 12 in college football. Let's try to get through that. Baylor wins at Oklahoma. TCU wins again. Texas wins in Manhattan. Iowa State gets their first Big 12 win. Alabama has 2 losses. Tennessee was blown up by the Manly men, the big boys from Georgia, and so much. Tanner Mordecai, SMU Houston, KU, bowl eligible. Jacob Zeno had a pretty good game. All of that. We'll get to all of it. So much to get to. Also, San Diego State in the Pac-12. Paul Catalina, let's start with the Big 12. 4 teams right now. TCU, Texas, Kansas State, and Baylor plays all 3 of them the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, and for the most part, in the last month, that's kind of almost the round robin, save a couple little outliers there. But with Oklahoma State's loss to Kansas this week, that puts them, I guess, technically out of it for now. I mean, a lot of things would have to happen. So now you've got 4 teams that all kind of control their own destiny on their way to Arlington, and Baylor being one of them after a month ago looking like a team that, couldn't find its way and had no intensity. That win in Norman this week showed some intensity, especially at the end of the game. They held off, they won a 3-point game. They held off a charge from the Sooners and won that one. Kansas State falls to Texas, which, shouldn't be a surprise. Coming off a big win like that and Texas coming off the bye, but, fought and scratched and clawed, and Texas had to hold off another comeback attempt, which they didn't do against Oklahoma State. And TCU continues to roll.
You want me to just go all the way around here?
Well, let's do the Big 12, and then we'll kind of jump into certain parts about it, but go ahead and give your summary of what you saw, because there's a lot to get to. Our first guest will be the voice of TCU and Brian Estridge, and then the UCF's voice of athletics, Marc Daniels, 3:45 and 4 today.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Baylor was going to go on to Norman and win. I think we all did, and, it wasn't easy by any means. That's certainly a game if you're an Oklahoma fan or you're their coaches, and I know, especially with their coaches, hearing them after the game, they felt like they let that one get away, and they felt like, if not for those 3 interceptions in the first half by Dylan Gabriel, then maybe that's a different ball game, but he did throw 3 interceptions, and, that's as much credit to Baylor's defenders getting their hands up as it was anything that Dylan Gabriel was doing. So they made those plays by getting their hands up in traffic and deflecting those balls, and, and at the same time, they only scored 10 points off those turnovers.
Yep, I know.
Like, that wasn't, as though it blew the game open. It did steal possessions, but they only scored 10 points to OU's credit. So you look at that, you look at the 49-yard field goal made by John Mayers, and those were the deciding points in that game. But really, that was Squirrel Williams. That was his game in the rushing attack. But he was fantastic. The O-line did a great job of just mauling, all day long and allowing him just enough room to be able to slip through and do what he does so well. So, I didn't think the passing game was really much to talk about other than just some tough catches that were made. But that was all about Squirrel on Saturday. And then the defense just ultimately getting enough stops and getting those 3 turnovers. So big win for Baylor. This is TCU, and then whoever is going to finish with TCU, basically. The Frogs, again, by the skin of their teeth, practically, able to, not quite go down to the wire, but Texas Tech, had that game, there for the taking again. And I know Joey McGuire's got to be really disappointed, but yet another game where TCU wins late and finds a way, and it doesn't seem like a real great recipe to keep going and lasting week after week. But here they are, another week where they fought and pulled it out at the end. So you have to give them a ton of credit for that. I do think that they are a completely different team without Quentin Johnston healthy, and not nearly as formidable of a team, especially if they run into somebody who can actually stop the run pretty well. That's going to be their upcoming schedule is going to really say everything that needs to about TCU. They need to get Quentin Johnston back, though, but good on them for just being able to get a win. Texas, really impressive. Should have won by more than 7, in my opinion. I don't know what all went into the idea to start Adrian Martinez over Will Howard. I wonder how many K-State fans wonder about how that might have looked differently. But I felt like Texas was pretty much in control the whole night. And that final score, I don't even feel like is really indicative of the way they, in my opinion, controlled that game.
What they did in the first half is what frightens you a little bit.
Yeah.
Not frightens, that's not the word. It kind of makes you go, whoo, yeah. I mean, that's explosivity right there.
The only time Kansas State, again, felt like they were about to turn the corner was if Adrian Martinez makes a big play on that last drive.
Yeah.
That was it. Like, okay, when they got it to they're within a touchdown, then you've got like, oh, hey, now they're maybe awake here a little bit, but other than that, like, it was Texas's game.
I mean, it was 31-10 at halftime. I mean, it's 31-10 at halftime. So the fact that it was even a close game, Texas only scored 3 points in the second half, and it was in the fourth quarter. I mean, terrific job by K-State, but that game could have been a blowout based on the way the first half went. So I felt like Texas showed some muscle there, even if they didn't finish it out real strong. But as I've heard ad nauseum from people, like, another Texas team would have lost that game and have choked that game away, and that very well could be true, but a good win for them otherwise. Iowa State, good for them just to win a Big 12 game. Obviously, there's a lot of buzz going on in Morgantown right now about Neil Brown and his staff and what all's actually happening at the moment with that. I'm not quite sure, but I know there's a lot of scuttlebutt about it. Just another bad loss for them. And a good win for Iowa State. Had a huge fourth quarter to help, propel them ultimately, but just nice for them to get a win. And then finally, Kansas over Oklahoma State. Great win for the Jayhawks. Jason Bean was, pretty good, but really that was the Devin Neal show. A historic day from him. He was amazing. And, Oklahoma State is just a mess, obviously, right now. No Spencer Sanders, which we weren't sure about. You kind of had a feeling that was going to be the case. Sure enough, he doesn't play. A bunch of other guys don't play. And Kansas just tore them apart and left no doubt about it. So good on the Jayhawks. Congrats on being bowl eligible. Baylor's now bowl eligible. Texas is now bowl eligible. And I think that's it from this weekend. But
those who are this weekend earned bowl eligibility.
Earned it this weekend. Those 3 did.
Yeah, Kansas graphic, you want to put this up real quick? We have a lot to get to, a ton of get to. So they tore down the goalpost, as they should. If anyone's going to storm the field, it should be Kansas. They did. They tore down the goalpost. And unlike, remember, Tennessee did the GoFundMe thing, and they have Kansas goes, no GoFundMe needed, as they've already put up the new goalpost. A little shade at Tennessee. And, I'm sure Volunteer fans probably get a little bit flustered about that. Before we go any further, and there's so much to get to, thanks to Danny Howe. Bumped into him today at one of our sponsors. He's a Sikkim365.com premium member. He has not been able to do much of watching what we do in the afternoon, but he loves our segments we put up. He listens to them. Danny Howe, great to bump into you. And Mountaineer Paul, he actually sent me this note late Friday. You guys okay down there? Apparently a few have spun up near Waco, and you guys are the first thing I thought about. Mountaineer Paul. And others, Joey, et cetera. We had some bad weather, Texas, Arkansas, and obviously Oklahoma. It was bad up and down a certain spot, but we got pretty lucky here in Central Texas. All right, now, oh my goodness. Dave Aranda, we'll have a few quotes from him, a couple of notes from him. Now, you're right, Craig. You mentioned Quentin Johnston. It was obvious that without him, something changed. Duggan, he was like he does, scratching and clawing. From Sonny Dykes, we felt like we would have him all week, but we got into the game and he just didn't feel right. So we didn't want to take a chance. We want him to get him back 100% healthy. So you wonder if, in fact, how healthy you would think he would have to. You'd have to like maybe rip his helmet off for him not to play in Austin on Saturday.
In Austin or in Waco 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, I think right now they're worried about Austin.
Yeah, I mean that's
he hurt Baylor last year. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, especially just knowing Baylor's history with TCU, he could miss the game this week, and they'll be like, I don't know, and then come out and have 11 receptions in Waco in a couple weeks, but or in just over a couple weeks. But yeah, TCU. They did. They play fast and loose a little bit again, but then Texas Tech loses Baron Morton. We don't know how long he's going to be out, and without him, they're back to being this kind of, unbalanced. It just doesn't look good, and Tyler Shuck. He just doesn't look like he's ready.
Donovan Smith would turn it over, and he did against Baylor, and I know he's had some issues with that, but they did seem to be offensively somewhat dangerous when he was running the show at quarterback, and they did as well with Baron Morton, but I don't know how long he's out. Also, another note on TCU, and Craig, go back to what we were talking about. D. Winters, heck of a player for TCU, the linebacker, targeting in the second half. Will miss the first half against Texas. Shodrick Banks, an A&M transfer, came in and played very well in his spot.
Yeah, the Texas Tech offense was fine with Baron Morton and, then when he went out with Tyler Shuck. But, they're just kind of what they are. This is about TCU. TCU's the team that's unbeaten. TCU's the team that's, right there on the verge of booking a Big 12 championship game. And your questions about Quentin Johnston and all that, yeah, without Quentin Johnston, they are not nearly as much of a threat offensively. Duggan didn't have, some big, huge day. He was pretty mild, quite frankly. Didn't even have, I don't even think, 200 yards passing. Not as much of a threat in the run game as he's been at times either. Really for TCU, I think this came down to Kendry Miller having another big game and then just getting, squeezing enough out of those receivers and guys like, a Tay Barber, for example. But outside of that, they don't have Quentin Johnston. They look a lot more one or two dimensional than the 3D explosive offense that we saw, kind of zooming it, hitting the big plays. They're a big play offense still. That's what their guys are, big play guys, but he is the biggest big play guy of all of them. And so without him, that's a huge element of their game that kind of opens everything else up that's no longer there. And you can key in a bit more on the rest of the cast, including Max Duggan. So kudos to Kendry Miller for carrying the load, but yeah, they're going to have to get Quentin Johnston back this next week I already am kind of leaning towards Texas anyways in this game. I don't know just yet how I'm going to go, but if Quentin Johnston's not playing, then I'm certainly leaning towards Texas in this game because I think they're playing with confidence right now, and I think even if it gets into a shootout, give me who's got the best cast, and if Quentin Johnston's down for TCU, then I think that, potentially tips the scales in Texas's favor.
All right, Anthony Hill. Garrett, if you don't mind, he's a number 2 player ranked in the ESPN class of 2023, committed to A&M. This came down today with him decommitting. I just saw a note from one of the UT fans. Of course, it doesn't take long for someone to go, hey, come see us. And maybe it's the TCU Texas game, which somebody mentioned on the chat room or in the chat room. Anthony Hill committed to A&M, a big boy star player. Remember now, Denton Ryan is where Sanders, the tight end, who is so good. He is an absolute beast for UT. That's where he went to play his high school football at Denton Ryan. So I'm not sure. It didn't affect Anthony Hill's original decision, but A&M's free fall, you might see this now become an issue. And, Paul, what did you tell me in the text message?
This is going to be what ultimately undoes Jimbo, if it does, and make his leash shorter, is that, right now he's got these great recruits and all that, but if they're going to make a big, bold move and pay a bunch of money to buy out, it's going to be because he can't get players anymore. Again, not happening anytime soon, but if this trend continues over a couple of seasons, they'll figure out a way to do that because then it's trending, all what they're paying them all that money for, they're not getting anyway, so they're going to have to shift. They're 1-5. They're in the SEC right now. They're last in the SEC West. They're paying the third highest paid coach in the country to be last in the SEC West.
No, they're not. They are technically.
Yeah, but that's what they're doing right now.
They're not.
So, yeah.
Hey, Garrett, check your email, Craig.
This season's been an utter failure for A&M for whatever reason you want to point to. The moment you start losing recruits, that's usually the death knell. That's what happened to Mac Brown was, ultimately they just kind of were treading water a little bit, and recruiting wasn't quite as sexy as it had been in some time. And as a result, I think that was like kind of one of the final straws was, man, we're not even getting like number 1, number 2 recruiting classes at this stage. Like this is enough's enough. But that's bad news for Jimbo. I already saw like the UT article from whoever it was, like, pumping up the chances for Texas to land him. So, A&M's loss could very well be their gains. I did find it funny though. I was listening to, I think it was maybe it was a press conference from today. Like Jeff Lebby, maybe I was trying to see what they had said like a couple days removed from having watched the Baylor film, and it was just so odd to me. And maybe this is just the industry and kind of where it is, and I don't know, but I understand that recruiting is the lifeblood. I understand that recruiting is like an entire industry. Like our site covers recruiting. I know that basically anybody working in college football like has some recruiting thing that they talk about. I get its importance. Absolutely. I understand why you've got to talk about it, but I swear that unless I just completely misheard it, like the first questions directed at Jeff Lebby in his press conference today were about recruiting, which I just find ridiculous. I don't know. Maybe I'm silly for that to be your overall concern coming out of that game and where you are in the season and all that, and you're worried about recruiting. And I can kind of understand it because I know it's the lifeblood. But
also when the answer to that question for Jeff Lebby can only legally be it's going well or it's not.
But it was like, what do you think the loss and how it affects recruiting? I'm like, how does it affect the team? Like the team that has another month to play, like the team that's trying to get bowl eligible. Like save me I just feel like this always looking way ahead stuff is just gets a little out of hand, and because you do that, you never actually have to look at the present. You just always kick the can down the road to that next class or that next quarterback or that next guy, and I get it, but
one of the things that could be happening is Colton Bosick, the young man from Austin Westlake, who's committed to Oklahoma. All of a sudden, it looks as if he is leaning towards, again, Texas bringing in a haul, very similar to what A&M was doing. Now, again, this is just what is on, the various sites, but you start to see a feeding frenzy. And it's going to back and forth. If TCU wins, maybe then it kind of dies down a little bit. I don't know. But there's only about a month until National Signing Day.
Yeah. But to the person who asked that question, does the 3-point loss affect recruiting more than the 49-point one they had a couple weeks before?
I'm not trying to like single people out, but it's like that's your important question to start things off with is about the recruiting. And I get it. Like, and you bring a very good example of why. And we're about to get into that time period where it's really going to be a grind with recruiting and early signing day and all that. So I understand it to an extent, but I find that a lot with big programs. And I get that's why they're big programs is because of recruiting, but I think there's a lot more to talk about coming out of that game than, who the 4 and 5 stars are going to be. But then again, that's part of what Venables is building. So
yep, absolutely. Let's get to a couple of more graphics. This earlier today on the Dan Patrick Show. How long is this? Like 15
it's
seconds.
About 11 seconds.
Yeah, this is Dan Patrick, an incredible talent and obviously a legendary Hall of Fame broadcaster. Listen to him, and then we'll go to Nicole Arbach and her response on Twitter just a moment ago.
Looks like San Diego State is going to go to the Pac-12. That is expected, at least according to my source, to be announced this week. But San Diego State to the Pac-12.
All right, so that's Dan Patrick. The guy's amazing. We've had him on. It's been a while, but love his work. Well, Nicole Auerbach, who covers college football, and this is her tweet. This came down a little bit after that. The report about the Pac-12 announcing the addition of San Diego State as soon as this week, a source close to the situation tells The Athletic that report is inaccurate. Been my understanding the Pac-12 will do its media deal first before any conference expansion. Now, part of that report or rebuttal, not rebuttal so much, but Nicole Auerbach is as soon as this week is what they're saying won't happen. But if, in fact, later on, possibly after the Pac-12 gets their deal, then maybe they add somebody along the way. So Kansas became bowl eligible, right?
Can we comment on that?
Yeah, it was just kind of a big deal.
Yeah. Well, jump in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just went right to the Kansas thing.
Well, I thought I gave a pause and nobody.
No, you absolutely did not.
No.
You kept going.
Talk.
I'm hoping you're breathing okay.
Yeah, I'm fine.
No, I think San Diego State to the Pac-12 is a thing that they should do. They need to maintain their presence in Southern California. Absolutely. Whether it happens this week or months from now or whenever the TV deal gets finalized, I think that would be a good thing for the Pac-12. I wonder who usually these things happen in pairs or fours or whatever, who their other partners would be bringing that over. We'll see. Don't know who would be interested in that. Maybe they're interested in Boise State. They have seemed to not be forever and ever, but San Diego State to the Pac-12 makes a ton of sense. I hope it happens for them. I would like to see them involved in any future Big 12 expansion. Maybe that still happens. Maybe this announcement makes the Big 12 go, all right, well, let's go get them too. But I can't say anything here or there about that because we don't know, but I think it'd be a great thing for San Diego State. I think it'd be a good thing for the Pac-12 too, because it doesn't stop anybody from leaving, but it at least gives them a conference to build out of if someone else does.
Yeah, I mean, it's great for that program. I know there's some very vocal people on Twitter who have been pushing, San Diego State to the P5 for a while now, the new stadium and all that jazz. And so there's, at least a sliver of demand for it and some, hardcore interest in wanting to, jump up a level. And so for those folks who have been pining for that, good for them and good for the Aztecs program, if that's indeed what's going to happen. I know Dan Patrick's not just talking to talk. So, obviously there's got to be a little bit of something to this that's legitimate for him to even bring it up. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know what that does value-wise, as far as the future and how much the San Diego market boosts your numbers or, complements the numbers you could be losing with UCLA and USC. I'm not sure about all that, but I know that they've been, trying to get to another level, and it looks like they could be joining that, much like, Houston and UCF and BYU and Cincinnati. So good on them if that's how it shakes out. Yeah, I'd obviously think there has to be another partner somewhere. I'm not sure, who that is, who would make sense. And I felt like with San Diego State, there was talk back in the day when we were discussing all this about how they would fit academically and how they would fit in all these other ways other than just, a football program and all of that. And so I'm not sure how exactly all that stacks up and who would be similar that could be brought in, whether that's a Boise State or, whoever the other options may be. But very interesting, and I'll be curious to see how long until we get an announcement and kind of what's said when that announcement occurs. But, yeah, great news for San Diego State if that's what happens here.
Yeah, I would selfishly love San Diego State and UNLV to be a part of the conference I cover. I mean, why not, right? It would be great. I would love to see tournaments there and bowl games there. But that's probably not going to happen, although that has been. Some of you, Phil Venzer, UNLV fan, among others, have been trying to pump that San Diego State, new stadium, whatever else.
I want to comment on something that Michael K19C fan said. San Diego could not even keep its pro team. I do want to get into the details of that. Okay, they just built a new stadium for the Aztecs, which is beautiful. It's fantastic stadium. It's one of the reasons that you can look at them and say, yeah, they deserve a P5 invite if they should get one. San Diego didn't keep its pro team because, look, the NFL wanted teams in LA, and the Spanos family wanted someone else to pay for their stadium.
Right.
And the city of San Diego, very rightfully, said, we will not do that. You are a billionaire, and you should pay for it yourself. And that's what the city of Oakland did, very rightfully, because the stadium upgrades they did for everything else never paid off for the city of Oakland. Go to Oakland. Tell me how the stadium's paid off for them over 50 years.
They're about to lose the A's.
It didn't, and it never has.
Yep.
And so, yeah, you're going to lose your pro teams, and that stinks. But those people stood up and said, no, we're not going to pay for it because you have plenty of money. And Stan Kroenke, who was already moving the Rams to L.A., said, you can come and play here and just pay me rental, and that's how it worked out.
San Diego, number 35 TV market. Vegas, number 40 TV market. Again, I would love for them to be a part of the Big 12. That doesn't appear to be even on their radar. Now, I mentioned Kansas. Yes, I'm excited for Kansas. Extremely excited because remember they had that great start, and then here they go. They end up winning, and they dominated Oklahoma State. Here's Max Olson. I want you to put this into perspective. This covers a span of only 5 years. Every Power 5 program has been to a bowl game since 2017 except for 2, Kansas and Nebraska, and the Jayhawks are going bowling. That is how much of a dumpster fire it's been in Lincoln, and Max Olson with that golden nugget right there to put everything in perspective because they once had maybe the longest bowl streak of anybody in college football history from the mid-'60s up until the early parts of 2000.
Now, Nebraska could still do it if they go 3-0 on the way out.
Okay, they're not going to do that.
But their three hardest.
They're not going to do that.
The 3 hardest games on the schedule are.
They're playing Michigan this week.
Yeah.
They'll be lucky if they score. Now, tomorrow we're going to have SMU quarterback Tanner Mordecai, who we've known for quite some time. We're going to come back and put his game and the SMU game against Houston in perspective. We're going to hear from Dave Aranda, more from you, and a couple of other college football notes. We take a break. Brian Estridge on TCU, Marc Daniels on UCF, and a lot more to get to today. And even a Jacob Zeno note. This is 365 Sports. And, oh, yes, by the way, Alabama, LSU, we will break that down along with Georgia and Tennessee. PettyClinicalOT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and maybe as you've gotten older, used to be. What happens? As you get older, 1 out of every 3 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. It's just part of father time. You know, it's not Mother Nature. It's father time. And things change within your body. That could be one of them. That could include you. You could be 1 out of every 3 men who have sleep issues. It's not the same energy issues, not the same sex drive. You're lethargic. Any of that might be happening. Doesn't have to be all of it, but it could be. It could be 1 or 2 of those symptoms. And if true, Dr. Petty can help you out. Go to PettyClinicalOT.com and contact them, PettyClinicalOT.com. He and his staff will set you up and take care of an appointment to get your blood drawn. He will look at the results, and if your testosterone level is too low, he can put you in a program to increase your testosterone level so you can become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be at PettyClinicalOT.com.
During Jeep Adventure Days, Allen Samuels in Waco is celebrating with an incredible lineup of 2022 models like the Grand Cherokee L, Renegade, Wrangler, and the Wrangler 4xe. These vehicles bring power to plow through any obstacles or the smooth, peaceful ride you'd expect from a Jeep. Jeep SUVs are also known for their design and technology. The Grand Cherokee L even brings you extended seating with a 3rd row. Come see what Allen Samuels can offer you and your family and find the Jeep SUV that fits your lifestyle.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select, Choice, and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
I mentioned that we will have SMU quarterback Tanner Mordecai tomorrow. I think it's going to be around 4:30. He'll join our show live. He had a game. Look at this stat from Sam Kahn per Matt Brown. We've had both of them on our show. The A&M LSU overtime game, which I think went 7 overtimes, ended up with 146 combined points, the most in any year since the AP poll era began in 1936. But then look at the one right below it. I was blown away by that. SMU and Houston, 77-63.
Yeah. And
Tanner Mordecai had 10 touchdowns, 9 passing.
And to beat that record, I mean, to A&M, that was a 7 overtime game.
Yes.
2018. So that's even more ridiculous what Tanner did the other night. 9 touchdowns to the air, another one on the ground. And we saw him in high school, has some really amazing performances, and that was unbelievable what he did.
Oklahoma commit signed and eventually transfers to SMU. Has had a hell of a career at SMU, and that is unbelievable. That 77-63, and also it was in regulation, 9 touchdown passes, and Toon at Houston had like 7 touchdown passes in that game. So there's a note on that. Now,
it's cool, but I mean, where the hell's the defense? Like, I mean, seriously, Clayton Tune had 7 touchdowns. He had 3 interceptions. He threw for over 500 yards. He threw 53 passes. So that's just crazy in a losing effort. I mean, Tanner, I guess the most impressive thing is he only threw 37 passes, and 9 of them were touchdowns. I mean, that's a pretty ridiculous mark. It's not like he threw it, 70 times, but yeah, I mean, Toon, 36 of 53, 527, 7 touchdowns, 3 picks. Tanner, 28 of 37, 379, 9 touchdowns, no interceptions. I mean, to not have picks either is really impressive. But, I mean, SMU also ran for 263. Houston also ran for 182. So just a crazy day of offense for these teams. And, I mean, Houston had 3 different 100-yard receivers who all had at least a touchdown. So yeah, fun, old school, like I guess the stereotype of what the Big 12 used to be, and that what people who clearly aren't watching college football still claim it to be. Those people out themselves very quickly. I think that's dissipated now at this point, though, in the year. But early on, you kind of heard some of that still, and it's like you're like 2.5 years behind at this point. But this is that stereotypical Big 12 game to a T.
Yeah.
So Holgorsen bringing that over, that should be nice.
So before the game, Tanner's TD to INT ratio was 16-7. It's now
he missed a game or two, missed a game and a half or so. Yeah. Now
but it's 25-7 now. So he's now got that stat line that you like, which is 3 or 4 to 1.
Remember, he was out. He had a shoulder injury, I believe it was, and we'll have him on to discuss that. Now, remember 95-21 SMU beat Houston. Houston beat SMU back in the David Klingler, Andre Ware in that area, John Jenkins, Jack Pardee, and you wonder if Houston could have, if SMU could have popped another couple of them if they would have done so. Now let's get into two games that shape the college football standings. TCU did what they had to do. Georgia took Tennessee and twisted them into a pretzel. Tennessee's still really good. But that was men among boys. And then, yes, LSU. And how about Brian Kelly, how you look at him now, or a lot of people do, compared to what you thought back when he was hired by LSU out of Notre Dame.
Look, his old school, all those players he recruited affected the CFP as well on Saturday night by blowing out Clemson. But the first thing on Tennessee and Georgia, I told you guys via text, had I known it was going to be a downpour in Athens, I would not have picked Tennessee because they run that offense that is terrified of the weather. And it's not just because you can't throw it around as much. It's because you got to stop and dry off the ball. And you got to do all these things that slow down the rhythm. And they're about go, 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 go. And the rain does nothing but slow you down. So if I had known that, I would have picked Georgia. And my little team of destiny thing wouldn't have mattered because that's just bad. And that, I know the rain wasn't all part of it, but that would have swapped my mind on Alabama and LSU. And we'll talk about this in the top 5 as well. LSU was able to completely do what they do every week, or they have been doing every week since they got in this role. And, Jaden Daniels was really smooth, and they cut down the mistakes. And Alabama just does not look like
they're
Nick
not
Saban
very
is coaching
football
them.
smart. Their football IQ seems to be very much disappointing. I mean, it's got to be shocking for Nick Saban, but then again, he recruited these players. Craig, men among boys, and then your thoughts about LSU and Alabama. Great football game to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that if you pass the ball a lot that, weather or whatever can come into play, but Georgia just kicked their ass and made them like it, in my opinion. I mean, there were certain moments where Tennessee had their opportunities to get back in the game, but ultimately, it was man among boys. It was finesse versus just outright power and strength, and I think that Georgia flexed their muscles. And Stetson Bennett obviously had a terrific game. He was the better quarterback. All this talk about Hendon Hooker and the Heisman and all these different things, Georgia had the better quarterback and the better performance on the day. I just thought their defense was salty. They were clearly teed up, had heard all the talk about how great Tennessee's offense was and all that, and they were just jacked up and ready. And look, that's why you went with Georgia, and that was the smart play, was to go ahead and go with Georgia, who was, somehow sort of kind of being almost overlooked a little bit just because people were so high on Tennessee. But, I mean, that's still freaking Georgia, man. That's still the Dogs. That's still your defending national champion, no matter who they've lost to the pros and all that jazz. So, really impressive showing from Kirby Smart. Shouldn't have been all that surprising in the long run of things, but I mean, whatever was affecting Tennessee, what affected them more than anything was Georgia. And so very impressive win there. And then over on the other side of things, Alabama I thought was going to come out and be much sharper than they'd appeared previously. I thought that they'd kind of get into playoff mode and realize that they had to go and grab this one and would kind of get back to, I guess, whatever it was that we're supposed to expect them to be. And maybe that's just being conditioned over the years. But, we were all fooled into thinking that they are somehow what they have been, because they're clearly not. They don't have the dogs at the skill spots as nearly as much. I mean, they still got more than most, but not nearly as much as they have had in recent years. And LSU, if there's any team that can go toe-to-toe as far as talent and have a similar mixture. It is the Tigers, and I think that Brian Kelly's done an incredible job. It was one thing to poke fun at him and laugh when he's taking stupid pictures or he's got his dumb accent or whatever, but that never should have made anybody think that he couldn't coach football. The whole fit thing, I get it to an extent, but ultimately his job is to sit there and coach football, and there's not many that are better than him at doing that, and he's proven it right now. So he went there and he had the better game plan. He and his staff outcoached Nick Saban, and his staff, his players outplayed the Tide players. That was mightily impressive from LSU. Daniels was terrific. He's such a playmaker, and especially saw that there at the end. And I wasn't shocked that LSU won that game, but I was surprised by the fact that they won it how they won it, and the way that it all kind of unfolded. Just very uncharacteristic in some ways of Alabama, but just mightily impressive that Brian Kelly's already got LSU playing at this high of a level. I know Garrett didn't expect them to be here at this point already, and yet, they're right there in the mix of. They got the win over Bama in the SEC West now. So
that's right.
They're cruising, baby, and just very impressive stuff from the Tigers.
They played they played football dumb against Texas. 17 penalties against Texas. Bama against Texas. They played, in a lot of ways, the way they allowed 10. Now, again, give quarterback Hooker and all them credit for what they did in the last drive to set themselves up to win it. But they seem like they're dumb. They're not very football smart. And we saw that against LSU. And what a great story for Brian Kelly and also the Tigers, as they now are right in the middle of it.
Okay. I think it's silly that people thought, that Brian Kelly, just because he's a bit of a dork and he's got the comedic timing of your 10th grade chemistry teacher, was not going to be good at coaching football when he's the all-time winningest coach at Notre Dame, a place that actually got harder to win at over the years. So it's impressive what he did there, even though he didn't win a national title. He was in the CFP. He played for, they played for one there. Yeah, the guy's dorky. The guy's not cool. But guess what? Half the coaches in major college. Do you think Dabo Swinney's cool?
No.
Look at Jim Harbaugh's pleated khakis. You think that guy's cool? No, he's not cool, but they're good at what they do. That stuff is, we make too big a deal of it.
Let me tell you something. My team is terrible, and they're the dumbest of all football IQs, and I bring that up only because of this point. Then we come back with TCU's voice and Brian Estridge. This has been an incredibly fun college football season to watch. The roller coasters, the emotions, the ups and downs of someone who you think is hot and then boom, or someone that you maybe said, oh, they're in trouble, and look where they are now. It's been incredible. One final note, a little bit of a local note compared to Baylor football. Jacob Zeno and UAB had UTSA in a big-time trouble moment. Zeno threw for 332 yards and 2 touchdowns, but UTSA was able to win. They win the close games, and they beat UAB in double overtime. Great win for Jeff Traylor and company. Great note on Jacob Zeno. 44-38, Roadrunners win that game.
Yeah, good for UTSA, and Frank Harris remains, a stud. They're really going to miss him once he's gone after his 20-year college career, because that's what it feels like he's been in San Antonio for a really long time. He's just been the starter for a while, but let's make it very clear, though. This is not last year's UTSA team. That's been very evident all year long, but they've scrapped and fought and pulled out some wins. Have been clutch when they needed to be. But yeah, this isn't the Roadrunners team from last year by any stretch, but they're scrappy, man. And that was a nice win, and good to see Jacob Zeno having some success, because I know it didn't start off right away. Roses. It was a little bit rocky, but that was roses for him on Saturday night, so good for him.
Tariq Wooten starting in the NFL. He was a part of UTSA, right? And he's had, in fact, he was rookie, I think, of the month, maybe, in October. All right, when we come back, TCU 9-0, Texas this weekend. We're going to focus in on that game. Obviously, Baylor and Kansas State as well. We'll hear from Marc Daniels, voice of UCF. They had a nice win to keep their drive alive in the top 25. I asked you on the chat room about your top 4 teams. A lot of you are doing that. Thank you very much. And this is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace. It's a home game for Baylor. It's Saturday evening. A great day. Great time, 6 o'clock kick. A great time to have a full day of tailgating around or near McLean Stadium. So are you looking for product? You need tri-tip or brisket. You need sausage or chicken. You need seasonings or sauces. You need what you need, and they have it at Waco Custom Marketplace. And they have charcoal, pellet fuel, what you need there. A butcher shop that will customize whatever you want as an order when it comes to product. Beef, pork, poultry, and seafood. They have a bakery, whatever you want there. Sometimes you'll see a tailgate. They've got cookie cakes or whatever, maybe some sort of a pastries. They can do that for you. And every day, fresh kolaches are baked, as is the bread. It's Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store, your tailgate headquarters at 425 Lake Erie Drive in Waco.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Culligan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Culligan Ford.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion. And I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
He is the voice of TCU Athletics, Brian Estridge, a great fan of ours, a good a friend of the show as well, and we are of what he does. Is TCU now 9-0, number 4 in the country. The standings come out tomorrow. Texas at Austin this weekend. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, and David Smoak, 365 Sports. Brian, I mean, this journey continues, and they have been one of the great stories in college football. Your thoughts about where they are now at 9-0?
Yeah, I tell you, it has been a fun ride, that's for sure, fellas. Thanks for having me on, by the way. Good to hear you guys. I think there's a couple of things that are going on here right now. One is you got a rejuvenated fan base at TCU, and that's been fun to watch. If you look at the crowds that have been at Amon Carter Stadium here for the last couple of weeks, I think you got a group of players that have bought in fully with this new coaching staff, and they did it from day one. And they've been inspired, they've been built up, their confidence levels at an all-time high right now, and I think that's been fun to watch. And they're talented too. They've got a nice scheme here that they all believe in, and they think they have the best stuff, as pitchers say. And when you have all of that mixed together, it makes for a fun ride. Sitting right now at 9-0, but maybe the toughest test of the year coming up Saturday night.
Brian, why do they play so free and easy when they're behind in games?
Because it's funny when you say that, nobody panics, and they don't venture away from the game plan. In fact, Sonny talked about that this week. He said, really Garrett Riley, who's the offensive coordinator, young guy, he said he's more patient than I am. I'm like, hey, let's run front four verts. We got to get a big play. We got to do this. And Garrett said, no, coach, we got it. We're going to keep running the football. We're going to keep doing what we do because our stuff works. And so I think a lot of that is because of that. For one thing, you got a guy like Garrett Riley who has been patient. I think you got great halftime adjustments coming from Joe Gillespie, the defensive coordinator. But it really all started in the spring and summer with Kaz Kazadi, who you guys know quite well, and what he has done mentally for these guys. They think that they're going to win every game. There is no panic in them. They don't feel like there's a reason why they shouldn't be confident, and they are. And so it plays out in games even when they get behind.
Brian, how would you describe the absence of Quentin Johnston has affected this offense, good, bad, or otherwise, and any update on kind of how they feel about his progress and where he is ahead of Texas?
Yeah, I think he'll be able to go Saturday night. I mean, he wanted to play on Saturday. He got hurt 2 weeks prior at West Virginia, or a week prior, I guess it was, at West Virginia, and came back in that ball game. They gave him a day off for seniority during the week, and then this week, he started the game, but then they ended up taking him out just because it just wasn't 100%. And they said, you know what, let's see if we can get by this week without you, get you ready for Texas. I think he'll be 100% coming up this one. Does it change the game? There's no question. I mean, he's that good of a player. But what it does do, it allows some other guys to step up. Darius Davis had a 23-yard touchdown catch. Tay Barber had a couple of 3 big catches in this one. I was a little surprised they didn't get the tight end involved more than they did. And so I think those are some things that, they got a lot of weapons. In fact, Malcolm Kelly, who you guys know played at Oklahoma, the wide receivers coach, I asked him earlier in the year, I said, when you guys go to game plan for a particular opponent, I said, what's the biggest advantage you have going? And he said the fact that we have multiple weapons, that they can kind of play any game you name. If you're gonna put an extra man in the box, and we're gonna throw it over top of you with these wide receivers, with Savion and Quentin and guys like that. If you're gonna allow us to run the football, Kendre Miller's gonna go for 158 on you. So I think being versatile like that helps as well when they game plan, guys.
So Texas, obviously, with a nice, impressive win, up 31-10 at one point in the first half. They were so explosive, and so we know TCU is as well. What are some of the? I know it's early, but a couple of things. They run the ball well. TCU, of course, they run the ball well. Both teams seem like they could pop 40 or 50 on anybody. Your thoughts about this one?
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to a couple of things. I think you can't turn the football over. TCU's got to get some pressure on Quinn Ewers. I think they've done a nice job at Texas of not allowing him to lose the game for them, especially when they got up against Kansas State. And I think TCU's got to try to get some pressure on him. They got to be good tacklers against Bijan and those guys. I mean, that's 2 of the best running backs in the country, obviously, that they'll be seeing. The offensive line for Texas has been good. And then this offense, I mean, I think TCU's offense has to start faster. You got the punt return for a touchdown last week from Darius to kind of jumpstart things, but really it wasn't until the second half, really the fourth quarter, when Max went 4 for 4 for 53 yards, 2 scores in that fourth quarter, where they really started to click. And so I think they got to start faster, because Texas is going to. Texas seemingly starts with a new set of plays that you haven't seen every week, and that gets them out to these big leads. And then once they settle into what they do, folks get a nice beat on them. And so I think you got to be prepared for anything when you see this offense to start, but then got to keep it in front of you. Don't let them get out to that big lead, and then you can kind of wear them down. And then, the X factor that everybody wants to talk about is the fact that Gary Patterson's there as a defensive specialist, or whatever the hell they call him. And so, I think that, you and I both know that he's staying up all night trying to grind on TCU, that they'll have this ball game circled. And so I think that'll be a nice chess match to watch as well.
Will he stay up as much as he would if it was Baylor?
Yeah, I think so, brother. I think TCU has replaced Baylor in that category, and that man's thinking right now. I don't. I think he would much rather take out TCU at this point. So, and that's okay. That's what college football is all about, right? And it's a fraternal organization. It's a small world. Everybody knows everybody, and there's history there. And so, I think that I know that these guys. Oh, it's interesting, and I'm being genuine when I say that these guys aren't even talking about it really. This program has moved on. These players have moved on. They're excited about where they are. They're excited about all that's happening to them right now, and the new kind of mood that's around here, the vibe of the program, if you will. And I think that that is motivation enough for them week in and week out.
Brian, with the potential national implications of every game as they tick forward, I know that's going to be hanging around for the team, but does the fact that they are in the most balanced conference in America kind of make it at least a little bit easier for Sonny Dykes to focus them on the week-to-week battles, opposed to, oh man, if we win these next 4, like what could happen?
Yeah, it's funny, Paul, you said that, because we talked about that this week on his TV show, the fact that, hey, you haven't had to go through that grouping of win these 3, take a break, win these 4, cut the season into pieces. It has truly been week-by-week compartments for this team, and I think you're onto something there. I think it's important that this team doesn't get ahead of itself. And, what's different, though, this year as opposed to years past is they've taken every game as the next biggest game. Whether it was Tarleton or SMU or Colorado or you got in the league play, all of them have been important to them. And so I think they're going to continue to do that. Here's the other thing about, this group is that they know that, with this balance in this league, there are no more New Mexicos on the roster, which when you're in the Mountain West, you always had that opportunity to go, okay, we may not have to play our best to win this ball game. I think in this league, you saw with Texas Tech last week, you better play well or you're going to get beat in this league.
Brian, is that the reason why they found themselves, you feel like, in so many close games there at the end, is just because of the competition that they're facing? Or is there something else underlying there as well, where they do have to find themselves digging out of a hole seemingly week after week?
Yeah, when they were in a gauntlet, remember those games where they had to come from behind? Those were 4 top 25 teams. Yeah. That's more than, Alabama ain't played 4 ranked teams. Georgia hadn't played 4 ranked teams. Michigan has it. And to get 4 wins on the road already, which TCU has done. Those guys haven't done that either. So I think it's just it's who you had to play. And at some point, all of us in the Big 12 have to kind of bow our neck and just be jerks about it and say, listen, you guys don't know what you're talking about when it comes to this league. Paul mentioned the fact that it's the most balanced league in the country. It's the hardest league in the country because you play everybody. You don't get to avoid somebody because of the schedule. And that's what makes this league great. And I think we got to continue to brag on that, man, that, hey, this is the league where that happens. This isn't a league where you might not have to play Ohio State for 3 years. No, in this league, you're going to play everybody. And that's where we, at least for now, until the other guys come in next year or whatever. But while we can, you might as well brag on it, right?
Yep.
Brian, is there any talk about, obviously, the college football playoffs? Sonny Dykes kind of alluded that there's not really that. Is it there? Is there that in the background?
I haven't heard that. I think you got to think that way. I think that way. But that's just me, I'm like, hey, if I'm Brett Yormark and TCU's undefeated at the end of the year, I cancel a championship game, and say, okay, I got me a team in here. I'm not going to risk it by having somebody beat them in the championship game. But But that's my goofy way of thinking. So I haven't heard anybody around the program talking about it. I haven't, there are no posters up or anything like that. That's not that's not the way these guys don't set. It's funny because you know how coaches are, and different programs are different. These guys didn't set like a goal tree at the beginning of the year. These guys said, let's go win the first game. All right, now let's go win the second game. And that's kind of the way their approach has been. It hasn't been, hey, let's try to, let's win 8 or, whatever it is. No, it's week by week by week, and that's what they've been doing.
They have absolutely done it. The resiliency came back 28-10 to Kansas State, came back against others. Damn, they're hard to get to. They're hard. You have to kill them. I think you got to cut their head off like a snake.
Isn't that that was the old Darrell Royal thing about their cockroaches, back in the day. He was talking about TCU. The Frogs beat them in 1961 when they were number 1. He said they're kind of like cockroaches. You can't kill them. They're just getting away. And so I think that that's kind of the mentality that they've taken on. But listen, fellas, you and I know that the way this league is set up, there's 3 difficult games still remaining for TCU. There's a lot of football to be played. Nobody needs to be making reservations in the Big 12 championship game just yet.
What worries you most about Texas, Brian?
Their physical nature, the fact that they can lean on you with that offensive line, the fact that those running backs are so hard to bring down. I think that would be it. But, when have we ever said that about Texas being physical? I mean, we do know they're specimens, and we do know that their recruiting classes have been top 5, for the last 85 years. But, I just think that I think if they wanted to, that could cause trouble for TCU, if they just said, hey, we're just going to get 2 tights, we're going to just jam it down their throat for 4 quarters. But I don't know if they have the patience to do that.
Thank you very much, Brian. Have a great broadcast in Austin. TCU 9-0. Will be interesting to see what the college football standings show, but right now, number 4 in the AP poll. That's Brian Estridge, voice of TCU. We break here, come back with the voice of UCF. Gus Malzahn and company, what they're going on and then what they're doing and where they are and what's next for them. Next on 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas Marketplace, just off of I-35, just south of Waco on the exit that is Highway 6 and Loop 340. What can they do? 2 things. If you have pain and your doctor's talking about getting another look at it or a better look at it and mentions an MRI, whether it's your shoulder, your knee, wherever that is, and they need a better look, Ideal MRI in the Central Texas Marketplace with a state-of-the-art technology MRI machine. That's one. They'll find whatever it is, or maybe there's nothing. It's just some kind of pain, and for whatever reason, it's a bruise, but they'll find it. Number 2, they'll save you a ton of money, hundreds and hundreds of dollars. The average MRI is $1,100. Theirs is $497 every single time. Or less. Dr. Rob Maxey and his staff, the techs and specialists, are amazing. I've been in their MRI machine 3 different times, and every time it has been a fantastic experience and found what they were looking for or were able to clear the air at IdealMRI.com.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Neighbors, this is Jordan Neighbors, wide open field in front of him, marches in for the score.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Here we go from the voice of TCU to the voice of UCF. Marc Daniels joins us as he's done before. We always love the time with him on 365 Sports with Paul, Craig, and I'm David Smoak. Marc, thank you very much for your time. It seemed like, I know the East Carolina game was a disappointment, but it seemed like that UCF's got a pretty good thing going right now.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's been a good couple of weeks for UCF. The ECU game, was not ideal. Things didn't go the way you wanted. I think they may be a better football team than people have thought. They may go on to win 8-9 games this year. But then UCF bounced back with its most impressive game, a win against Cincinnati, a hard-fought game at home, and then went on the road against a talented Memphis team and overcame some things in that football game to win and set themselves up for what was thought to be a couple of years ago. Say UCF Tulane is a big game, but it is a huge football game in the American coming up on Saturday with both teams now ranked in the winter, moving atop of the conference standings. So things are good, but there's always the next big game coming up on Saturday.
Were there nerves around the team when Mikey Keene had to come in for John Rice Plumlee? Because it doesn't seem like he was bothered by any of that. Led them to the win against Cincinnati, played really well again last week, Mark, and had to win the bowl game, of course, last year as well.
He's played his 6 best quarters of football at UCF. Mikey last year was put in a tough spot as a true freshman, replacing Dylan Gabriel, who went down at the end of that Louisville football game and really had to go through a season of learning on the fly. But he won his teammates over with his performance. And Gus Malzahn said many times, after the season started, that Mikey was right there to battle with John Rice Plumlee. Could have gone either way. And he's been great in preparing week to week, and then his number was called in that end of the second quarter, second half against Cincinnati. He made some huge plays in what was a season-saving win for UCF. Now you go on the road, and his numbers weren't, 350 yards, 5 touchdowns, but he made some really big passes at key moments and putting the ball in the right spot. Kobe Hudson, an Auburn transfer, has really elevated his game. He had a couple of great catches and then a beautiful pass to Javon Baker, an Alabama transfer, in the back corner of the end zone when UCF needed it. And that huddle, we don't huddle anymore, but that huddle for the most part has great respect for Mikey. So with the change, it wasn't like, oh boy, it was like, hey, let's go with Mikey. And he's been razor sharp. Gus Malzahn again said today, he'll see as the week progresses and he'll make the decision he feels gives the team the best chance to win. He knows he's got a couple of quarterbacks that certainly when they're on can really help UCF win football games.
Have you seen Gus just further settling in? I mean, I know he's not brand new at this point, but just, going through a little bit of adversity a couple of times this season, guiding this team, now getting back to a bowl game, dealing with quarterback injuries. Just how much more comfortable do you sense that he is, and how's this program continuing to grow around him?
A second year, things are going to be easier. You're comfortable with things. You know where everything is, and more of his fingerprints are on this roster. We all know that rosters go through so much change with the transfer portal, players and coming and going, but I think Gus feels like, this is still his team that he's building. It may not be complete, but it's much more of his type of style. Gus has always emphasized he needs a balanced offensive attack to run and throw the ball. Well, he's backed it up this year. UCF's top 10 in rushing, and as far as total offense, top 10. And he is committed to run the football, set it up to throw. I think Gus is having fun because he's back calling plays. He's in charge of his offense. No one's telling him who his coordinator should be. No one's telling him what plays to run. And I think he's having fun with that. He also realizes we find ourselves in a lot of tough football games, and you've got to make some adjustments along the way. UCF's also made great improvements on defense this year. That's been a big part of their growth. So I think he's doing a couple of things. One, he knows he's got a team now with a chance to win a conference championship. He knows what's at stake if they can do that. At the same time, guys still trying to build and plan your roster for the change next year where, he knows UCF has to elevate its game even more. So I think he's more comfortable in year 2, but always planning for year 3. He's done a great job recruiting thus far. He knows that UCF's after a different caliber of recruit, and in this state, there's a lot of talent to go get. So all in all, the CEO of UCF football, I think, has done a really good job as we're in the thick of things in year 2.
Do you think that he's just in a really nice, peaceful spot right now compared to the ups and downs of Auburn?
I think I've got to know Gus a little bit over the last 2 years, and I pick and choose my moments where I ask questions that I know kind of are, And, have I asked him off air about what he thinks was happening at Auburn? Sure. I'll keep that answer between us, but you guys can kind of guess as he watches from a distance. Look, Auburn, other jobs in the SEC, it's more than just being a football coach. It's dealing with the politics around it. It may be, no different than some places in the Big 12. I don't know if it's as many in the American, but we all know sometimes the wannabe GMs will play a role. I think Gus has welcomed the chance to go back and be a football coach without a bunch of text messages suggesting this play or this guy to be hired or things like that. So he's enjoying his time at UCF a lot. He certainly has an eye. Look, Cadillac away from somebody special to him. He wishes him well at Auburn, and Gus has many friends back there. Not speaking for his wife, Christy, and himself, but I think Gus enjoys being at UCF in Orlando right now versus maybe some other place in Alabama.
Mark, what does it feel like for the fan base to know that UCF has grown so much over the last couple of years that they'll now be making more media revenue than Florida State and Miami will?
It's a nice smile for a lot of different reasons. Look, guys, the frustrating thing that UCF fans had for years was that they couldn't win their way into a big league, or could they? The thought was, hey, there's no guarantee. If you do this, you get an invite to a bigger league and you get all that media money. But there's no question that success in 2017, 18, 19, and 20 builds a brand. And the best example I can give is, look, we lost to ECU, and they beat us pretty bad. Then the next week we beat Cincinnati, and with 2 losses, we got ranked in the college football playoff rankings. I'm not saying we didn't deserve it, but the brand growth, I think, played a factor in that, where now you see that logo and it's like, oh, who are those guys? So I think that plays a role in it. And then, to be a part of a league where, and you guys have, I know, enjoyed following this story, where everybody wrote the Big 12 off, and plenty of people said they'll end up making maybe $10, $15 million, and to have the deal be reported what it is kind of a, wow, you all were wrong. And wherever, the number ends up, and maybe the Pac-12 might be a little bit more, it might be around the same, and the ACC, however they do their math, it may be less. Look, the bottom line is the Big 12 did more than just survive. It solidified its place as a conference that plays great football. It's really great basketball. And from a monetary standpoint of that media deal, ended up doing far better than people thought. For UCF, look, it's money that they had never dreamed about. Even if it's 30, 35, 40 million. In the American, which has been a good league for UCF, you were hoping to get 7. And guys, do the math over the course of a decade. $70 million versus potentially $250 million or $500 million. You can spend things and compete at a different level where you've tried to piecemeal things along the way, which is what UCF has done in recent years.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to see what they and the others can do with that boost, no doubt about it. Mark, your thoughts on, I know it's still early in the week, but your thoughts on what you've seen from Willie Fritz in Tulane?
He's such a good coach. He's done a really good job. Last year they were better than the record. They had a bunch of injuries last year. Michael Pratt's a Florida kid, a quarterback. He's really good. They've got 2 dynamic running backs, and their defense is really good and tough, and they smother you on first and second down to put you in uncomfortable third down positions. UCF's national numbers on defense are better than Tulane, but Tulane's in-conference defense has been the best. I do think it comes down to some basic things. The team that can be successful running the football, I think, has the best chance. But for UCF, you go on the road, you've got to protect the ball to not make turnovers. And if you do that, give yourself a chance to win. I'll be curious how Tulane handles the next big game environment for them, even though they're at home, a bigger spotlight on them as you get later in the season. Look, if they win, they're in a real great spot where even a possible loss to Cincinnati the final week would not hurt them to play in the conference championship game. UCF does not have that luxury. If the Knights win out, then they'll play in the conference championship game and actually host it. But it's interesting to see how Tulane handles that next big pressure situation. And look, that's the great thing about being in a conference race is UCF finds itself with Cincinnati and Tulane in the American, and clearly the crazy race that's happening in the Big 12. I've said this, and one of the many things that I'm excited about the Big 12 is how competitive the league is, where instead of having top-heavy dominance, you go in November and you got 4 or 5 games every week that matter for who can make a conference championship game. That's great. That's exciting. That's fun. That's why TV paid big money for it.
Mark, I know that there are, a couple hours away from you, but I'm curious on the UCF perspective on what's gone on at USF with Jeff Scott being let go. Looks like they are trying to maybe copy the UCF plan of action because they're building new facilities on campus. They're doing all that. But how did UCF make that turn and USF did not follow them when they decided to let's take a jump and try to be big time?
Well, guys, you got to go back. They were in the best position of all. They were ahead of UCF and got into the Big East. And, they remind you where they were ranked in 2007, but that was a long time ago. And I think what happened, and again, some may know the story, their then president did everything she could to block UCF from a football-only invite to the Big East. She successfully campaigned and got the votes to block it, and UCF never forgets that. And UCF found enough people to buy into the vision that, if we build a facility, and UCF is the first indoor facility in the state of Florida, build an on-campus stadium, and everybody said, you can't do it, won't be able to do it, and then did it. And South Florida kind of laughed at UCF going, well, you're playing at a smaller stadium on campus, and we're playing where the Bucks play. Then you have to go win. And then UCF began to win in Conference USA. And then the American when South Florida was there, UCF kept on winning. But guys, the famous 2017 Black Friday football game, 49-42, UCF beat South Florida. That was the great game on ABC, watched by many. From that day forward, South Florida's gone 16-40. UCF had the undefeated season in 17, in 18, parlayed that into building a brand that had recognition. And South Florida could never get it right when Strong left. And they woke up today and said, wait, what happened? All of a sudden, UCF is selling out its football stadium. It's playing in big games and playing in big bowl games and winning conference championships. And South Florida is like, what happened? They've now committed themselves to building a facility. The on-campus facility is under construction. The stadium, I'm not knocking. It's an idea that right now the price tag is $350-400 million with no financing plan. I don't know where that's going to go. And the reality is that UCF got the invite to the Big 12. You guys know the reported details of that contract that doesn't call for additional money if it's not a P5 school. I don't know if you're a G5 school where you think that invite may go to the big league anytime soon. So that's kind of where things stood. UCF invested in itself years ago. South Florida didn't think they needed to. And lo and behold, it was the right move by UCF, but you had to go win. And UCF did do that. South Florida had it going for a little bit. But again, from that famous game in 2017, they've gone 16-40, and will go find a new coach and kind of commit to the next stage in what's going to be a different look American, where the media money's not going to be as good as it is now. And the challenges are going to be tougher, I think, to now raise money for a stadium when you've had the struggling season. There's resources in place that it can be successful. It's taken less than 24 hours for plenty of rumors of guys like John Gruden's name to pop up, Deion Sanders' name to be thrown around, and there'll be plenty of the names that people will come up with. In the end, they'll hire somebody. It can be a good job. It's a great recruiting area. And if they are committed to building those facilities, then somebody has a chance to do quite well. For UCF, they just were the right place, right time to be successful, and they benefited from that versus the school that had an advantage that lost it.
I think UCF's defensive coordinator should be coach of the year to hold SMU to 19 points.
How about that? Was that unbelievable?
Yeah.
I mean, we were on the bus after the victory at Memphis, driving to the airport. It's like, wait, what is that? 56.5. And Tanner Mordecai's good, and he flinged it all over the place. And wow, what a football game! And the pinball numbers. I mean, we're getting set to do basketball here. I know Baylor tipped off today, and that's a basketball score right there. But it shows you again, SMU's got players and they can throw it, and not surprised by the offense, surprised by that score there. Eye-popping, and wow, what a score. Yep. Hey, Mark, thank you very much for your time. Voice of UCF, we've gotten to know him with a lot of what was going on last fall, a year ago, when the Big 12 got up off the canvas after losing Texas and Oklahoma eventually, in UCF, Marc Daniels, a lot of great guys that we've had on who cover or are part of UCF football. We appreciate his time. All right. We will have Kendall Cal today at 4:45. College basketball started today. Baylor had a dominant win, as they were supposed to, against Mississippi Valley State. But also his thoughts about Baylor football, because he's written a few things about them, too. Garrett, do we have the graphic about if, in fact, the college football playoff was 12 games or 12 teams now? I want to throw this out there if you can. This is just from Steve Shook. He does this every week. It's pretty simple, but if the season ended today, and again, it's not the AP poll, it's the college football standings, which will be released again tomorrow night. But here's what we would have. Tennessee and Clemson after the weekend, Oregon and Ole Miss, LSU, Alabama, USC, UCLA. And I put those in italics because there's no way that they would make that the quarterfinal round games.
No, especially since they're going to play in two
weeks. They're going to play.
But that's why I put those in italics. Then Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU against the winners to the right of those games above. Just a little bit of a glimpse, even though all of that could change before it's said and done.
I would qualify this a little bit with just because they're ranked in the top 12 does not mean you will be in the playoff.
No.
There is going to be some committee stuff that goes on there. But yeah, I mean, like if that's it, I mean, you will if you're in the final top 12.
Well, there would be for example, who would it be the best group of 5 team right now?
Probably Tulane.
Tulane, maybe the Tulane UCF winner. Could possibly
right now they're definitely getting in.
Yep.
They're definitely going to be in this thing. So yeah, they'd have to be included. And yeah, like LSU, Bama, that's obviously clearly not going to happen. But both getting into the playoff, yeah, I could definitely see that. USC, UCLA, both getting in the playoff. I mean, that's the 12-team format. And on the one hand, be a great year to soak in the fact that Clemson's not going to be in this thing. But in a 12-team playoff, yeah, they'd still, in theory, be totally alive. So depending on how you want to look at that. Is that good that Clemson would still be involved, even though they clearly aren't going to be involved in the 4-team? Maybe that's one where you don't feel like the expanded playoff's that great because maybe they're not deserving of a chance. But at the same time, I do think that, like 6 of those other schools that are mentioned right there probably do. So if that's how you have to get TCU a chance or a Tulane a chance or who the heck else, like a Tennessee a chance since they've, now put themselves behind the 8 ball, then I'm for that, even if it means that, a Bama or a Clemson's going to get the benefit of the doubt. And who's to say, even though they lost, like that they're not still amongst the best teams in the country just because they lost a game. So, I'm cool with that. I'm very curious to see what it's going to look like by the end of the year, though.
All right, we will move to the next segment. We have some basketball news on a friend of the show that we saw coming even a couple years ago when Baylor opened up their national championship run and season with Hartford in the NCAA tournament. News on John Gallagher. Also news on a former Baylor assistant who was in the NFL, who is no longer, at least right now, in the NFL. And the chat room and the text line, 254-339-1122. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. I did get some new information from them on a couple of the incentives for this month, for November. Alan Samuels, you can save big on the new 2022 Ram 1500 Crew Cab. How about this? Total value is up to $4,250 with 2.9% for 72 months. $4,250 values with 2.9% for 72 months. That's right. Plus an extra $500 bonus cash for first responders. No payments until January 2023. Shop right now, the award-winning dealership, with what they have with Jeep. Obviously, they have all sorts of brands of Jeep, or at least models of Jeep. The Ram trucks, Motor Trend's Truck of the Year, that three-peat that they had, like Pat Riley used to say. And along with that, of course, whatever you want with pre-owned cars on the lot. But go back to that 2.9% for 72 months and $4,250 in total values on the 2022 Ram 1500 Crew Cab. Ted Teague, the general manager. AJ called me the other day, a sales rep, client manager. It's a great place to be, a great place to find your car on Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Make a winning drive to Genco and refinance your vehicle. Every loan can skip monthly payments for 90 days with rates as low as 3.75% APR for 48 months. Right now is the time to make a play. At Genco, we save you money by helping you pay less for your car. Every loan scores no payments for 90 days. Then have a chance to win 3 more months of no payments. Apply online today for an additional discount of 0.15% off our already low rates, subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org. Member NCUA.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
Did you know Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco is open to the public? Next time you're in town for a Baylor athletic event or you're in town for tourism, take advantage of their day passes for $10 a piece or the weekend for $30. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers 40 group exercise classes, including indoor cycling and yoga, boot camp, and bar. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines, and a spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alec Botch, where you will be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, kids club, 16 tennis courts, and 8 pickleball courts, and youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons available. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit wacotennis.com or visit them next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Want more updates during the day? Follow 365 Sports YT on Twitter.
Excuse me. Kendall Cat will join us from Sikkim 365 on Baylor football and men's basketball. Opened up with a route today of Mississippi Valley State, as they should. But this story here, Paul, Craig, and I, we got to know John Gallagher, the head coach at Hartford. They opened up the 2021 NCAA men's basketball tournament against Baylor, and Baylor eventually, about 10, 12 minutes into the game, just kind of took control. Fiery guy, funny as hell, just seems to be as good as you could ever want as a coach, and took Hartford to the NCAA tournament. But even then, there were signs that something
three times,
wasn't.
By the way.
Huh?
Three times.
It's still signs that maybe something wasn't kosher. And what was happening is the administration, the president, was in the background undermining, it appears, the men's basketball team, and now they're going Division III, and that happened soon after the tournament ended. Today, he announced his resignation. Paul, of everything he wrote he wrote a long release about his resignation. What was the one thing that stood out to you the most?
The one thing to me was, look, I get that they're going to D3 and there's budget cuts, but the things they were doing budget cut wise were just dangerous. Not sending an athletic trainer and not letting making the team pay for their own meals on the road. Like that's stuff that failing businesses do that, just don't make any sense. Like, if you don't have money to do something, you can't do it. And I get why they're having budgetary problems at Hartford, but this is like D3 schools at least send athletic trainers because you've got liability that you have to deal with as well. Didn't send them to a scrimmage at Dartmouth. What money are you really saving by not doing that when on the back end of that, the kid could sue you for not having – it just doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, I think that's what stuck out to me was not only are they going to D3 to save money, but they are cutting corners where that's beyond budgetary mindfulness. That's just crazy.
You got to have trainers. You got the debit card or whatever it was that they were trying to pay for something, that bounced as well. Craig, you remember John Gallagher. I hate it for him. Here's a note from him on this. He apparently, or at least somebody suggested, he was going to join Porter Moser at Oklahoma. And one of the reasons he did not was because he was assured they would not be dropped from Division I men's basketball. Now, I don't know what that timeline was, but he sued a member of the Board of Regents because he was promised they would not be dropped from Division I.
Yeah, I mean, it's just unfortunate, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I don't feel like this is any shock whatsoever. I mean, this has been a 2-year buildup towards this. We've been talking about this legitimately, him being on the outs at Hartford for at least 2 years at this point. And I just think it's unfortunate for the players more than anything. I mean, I hate it for him. He seems like a nice guy from our interactions, and certainly seems like he got dealt a bit of a raw hand and just doesn't have the administration that cares for, the sport that he happens to coach and that a lot of people care about. They see it differently, and that's academia for you. I mean, that's part of the deal. So, I mean, it's not like he can't ever coach basketball again. He can go anywhere else and probably find a job, so that's good. But on the other hand, for those players, that really sucks that they lost their head coach the day before their season starts. And apparently did so in the midst of, being a part of a team where they're paying, I guess, like you just mentioned, I don't know all the details, but they're, I guess, having to pay some out of their pocket. I would assume that's the coaches, not the players. But, the no trainer thing, just is I don't know how you excuse that if you're Hartford. I don't even know how you pretend to try and defend that. So I would be curious to know what they've said, if anything, about that part of it, because that just seems like a lawsuit waiting to happen. And again, I don't know how all that works, but that's just very poor judgment on their part to even risk that. And then sure enough, a player gets hurt. Like that screams to me that something's way off, and there have been other things that have kind of screamed that, but we'll get to see the mask pulled off now, because they're going to have to go try and find a basketball coach here by tomorrow, and I'm sure they may have named an interim, but I hate it for John Gallagher, and I hate it most of all for his players that went through an entire offseason, committed to him and committed to that school, and the day before they're about to start this long journey that may or may not be very much fun for the next few months, you're going to pull the rug out with their head coach, or I guess he did. Ultimately, that sucks. No matter how it happened, I hate that for those players, and hopefully they're able to enjoy this season and get things on track. But yeah, just a really, really unfortunate situation there.
And of course, Hartford has denied any of the accusations, as you would expect them to do, and they have their side of it. Story has been updated. Jeff Borzello saying that his resignation is full of inaccuracies and calling his accusations baseless. So, hey, we're fans of his. We don't know the entire story, but we saw this coming in the spring after the NCAA tournament, and then it happened. They are dropped to Division III, or dropping to Division III, and he had a pretty good thing going there at Hartford. And unfortunately, a great run ended with this kind of a story with John Gallagher. He can and probably will, not this year. Not going to coach this year. Not sure about the terms of what Hartford owes him, et cetera, since he's resigning. But hate it for him, hate it for Hartford, and hate it for college basketball. All right. Over the weekend, someone won a World Series.
Yeah. It was an impressive win that they had, and in front of look. Let's talk about the biggest win. It was not just the Astros; was Mattress Mac getting $75 million, and only losing part of it on the free furniture he gave away. Just nuts. But yeah, the Astros were the best team all year. It's not a surprise. The Phillies really gutted out until the Astros got too much for them. And back at home, Mattress Mac threw out the first pitch. George Strait's there. I just kind of felt that there was nothing the Phillies were going to do to get the vibe out of that building they were going to need to. They kept it close, but ultimately the Astros are just the best team all year.
Yeah, I mean, they're number one without a shadow of a doubt, and I think, like Paul said, they were pretty much that way majority of the year. I'm here in Texas, so it's impossible to avoid all the Astros chatter and all that. Didn't grow up an Astros fan. They were always a National League team to me, whereas I was a fan of the AL Rangers, and I know they've now been in the division together for several years, and the Rangers had their opportunities to win one and missed out on those opportunities, and the Astros took advantage and haven't won it every opportunity they got, but they've now won two in a very short amount of time, and just very impressive job by their front office and by their players, and to lose some stars and to still keep chugging along like it never even affected them. To lose a Carlos Correa is pretty crazy. So good on them. Terrific team. Left no doubts, and there's not going to be any banging trash can jokes and all that kind of stuff. I did see where who's the super popular highlight? John Boy. I did see some huge reaction to, I guess, he has a store and they put up a bunch of Astros merch afterwards, and Astros fans just absolutely roasted the replies because he was, I guess, a leading figure in the whole Astros cheated. And here he is trying to sell T-shirts after they win the World Series. I don't know about all that, man. So it was funny to see. That's just, I don't know, but that was funny to see the Astros fans react so viciously to his post promoting the Astros T-shirts he was going to make a buck off of. But they seem to have fun with it. They got their revenge, so to speak, and that's an example of it, is to be able to point at everybody who doubted them, even if it was at the time legitimate to say yeah, just banging whatever it was. They can now say look. Say what now? And you can't say anything. I mean, they went out and they earned it, and there were no questions left.
Mini dynasty right now.
Yeah. I have to shout out my good friend, him, Adam Winkler, works for ABC 13 in Houston now. When the Nationals beat the Astros in the World Series, he was covering that for a station in Virginia. And
so
I
see where you're going.
Adam is born and raised in Houston, went to Klein High School, actually played high school baseball with David Murphy, but went to Klein. So he's, his whole family, they're Astros fans. All of them are Stros fans. And 2 years ago, he had to walk in, and I'll tell you how much of a pro he is. And everybody has to do this, but he loves the Astros more than almost anything. And he had to walk in and be like, that was a great home run in the third inning. And then like in his brain, he's like, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, because it's just breaking his heart. But did a great job there, but then got to cover his hometown team in his hometown, winning the World Series.
So he's the difference maker.
I think so.
Yordan Alvarez. Do you know how he got to Houston? He was first signed out of being a part of the Cuban National Series team by the Dodgers as an international free agent. Houston acquired him via a trade in 2016 before his professional debut. He then was named unanimous American League Rookie of the Year, and he now may be one of the top 5 hitters in all of baseball.
Yeah, and the
Dodgers and their talent search is amazing, but a great trade for the Astros.
Well, and the Astros are really dominating. The Astros and Dodgers are the best at building their systems top down right now. Yordan Alvarez, go look at how big he was when he came to the Dodgers in 2016.
Was he like 250 or something? Yeah.
No. He was scrawny.
Screen rail. Okay.
Yeah, the Dodgers and Astros both got some protein shakes in that guy. He's a big scary dude now.
It's a great story. Okay, one more quick thing. Here is Baylor coming off the win against Oklahoma. The great weekend in the Big 12 last weekend, and now another one with TCU in Austin. Kansas State coming down to Waco. He was asked today, Dave Aranda, about Baylor, their next 3 games. They're focused on, right now, K-State. But the 3 teams involved in the Big 12 chase, with all due respect, Kansas and Oklahoma State still alive. But Baylor has K-State, then TCU, and then Texas.
A 4-team race to the finish in the Big 12. You guys and then the other 3 teams on your schedule. Is there excitement and energy with the team knowing that challenge you guys have in front of you?
I appreciate that.
Come out of that, Garrett. I don't know what's wrong with that audio. Okay. All right. Well, he basically said they really haven't talked like that. Of course, you want to know the week is or whatever, but they do have, despite what was, man, you looked up and what's going on with them. Now they control, and it won't be easy to control any of the next 3 games, but they control their own destiny with K-State and then TCU and then, of course, Texas and Austin the day after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Hell of a schedule.
Yeah.
Hell of a schedule.
Just go win. Just go win every week. And it's that simple now. They don't have to wait around. And, yeah, it's going to be tough, though. I mean, it's going to be there's no – and, again, this is a conference, Brian Estridge said it earlier. There's no New Mexico's coming around the corner for anybody. But for these to be the 3 they have to play and the 3 that are the most important to make sure that they get into the championship game, Baylor has a rocky schedule this year, and this now somehow made it. I didn't think it could get rockier than it was just when we saw the release of where they have to go, when they had to go, and what they had to do, and then to make the Big 12 championship game again, to have to beat the 3 teams that are also in that hunt makes the season that much better, and again, more interesting for Baylor.
I think it's the perfect close to the season because it's all the teams that matter right now. I just think that the part that you hate is that you caught Oklahoma State, unlike the majority of the Big 12, when they were actually Oklahoma State, not whatever team this is that Gundy's rolling out there the last couple of weeks. It's all dinged up. I mean, teams are now just, Kansas is punking Oklahoma State like it's nothing, and that's not the team that Baylor played a few weeks back. So, that loss looks a little bit different in hindsight. You have to kind of put an asterisk next to that. But, to lose to BYU, that doesn't look like some great loss now, as it maybe did at the time. And then what was their other loss?
West Virginia.
West Virginia, that was an awful, atrocious loss. And it kickstarted the run they're on now. But, that's the one, like at least BYU, you could say, okay, well, Saturday night, Cougars weren't quite exposed just yet, and early in the year with a young team who was nervous, clearly, and, things got away from you there. You can understand that. Losing to a more full-strength Oklahoma State team, you can understand that. But that West Virginia loss, that's just still a bad one. And you look now, where's West Virginia? What have they done since then? Nothing. They've done nothing since that game. And that whole deal was, oh, well, maybe this is a launching point. And the cries for Neil Brown's job are louder than they've ever been as of now. So they didn't turn that to anything. That was just a night where a lot had to go in their favor, and it did. And Baylor had to have a lot go wrong, and they did. And, as a result, that's kind of going to be the difference in, the kind of where we're talking about them right now. Like, they're still in their hunt for the Big 12 championship, but you look back, those 3 losses, like, a couple of them are still easy to swallow, but they should probably be a slight bit better. And even still, with all that said, like, here they are, and they're right in the thick of things. And, they're not going to be competing for a playoff, but everything else is on the table for them. And all they have to do is not rely on anybody else. Just go in. That's all you have to. And I say that's all, but that's, you don't have to, like, beat this team and then hope that TCU beats this team and then hope that they lose another game. No, just go win your games, and you're in the Big 12 title game. Bottom line, period. And for them to be in that position, given where you maybe felt after Morgantown in particular, it's a testament to this team for growing and the staff for growing and getting back on track and playing some good ball, and they've done that.
I thought last year when they lost the game in Fort Worth, in fact, I was the brainiac who tweeted out, well, you can kiss the goodbye any chance to win a Big 12 title. Well, things did flip. Cougar Track Super Chat. Sorry we missed it earlier. Trying to get back to when we found it. Thank you. $5 Super Chat. We appreciate it. Doesn't it seem like there have been more injuries in college football this year than in years past?
Not to me. I mean, there's always injuries. So.
I think we just now know more about them. And Craig was bringing this up about if college football wants to go even heavier into, as far as odds and gambling and all that, the Spencer Sanders injury, which some Oklahoma State fans have been saying is coming, he doesn't play. And that affected that game, not because Kansas won the game. Kansas may have won it straight up. But, yeah, in the Big 12, there's been a lot of quarterback injuries, and there's also been the Quentin Johnston injury, which affected TCU a little bit, but others too.
Yeah, I don't know that there's been more this year. I do think that in the Big 12 there has been. I mean, I can't speak to that when you're talking about the time that Quinn Ewers missed. You're talking about now about Spencer Sanders having missed time. And I know there's been a lot of others that you could point to as well, but those are just 2 that kind of come top of mind. I mean, shoot, Chandler Morris right there at the beginning of the year. I mean, if not for his injury, then where's Max Duggan right now? Is he still leading an undefeated TCU team? Probably not. But yeah, I mean, I think maybe just some of them are a bit more high profile, and perhaps that's lending to it. Perhaps it's just there's been a run of quarterbacks in particular, and so I guess that would play into the high profile thing. But yeah, I don't necessarily get the vibes that it's been a national thing. But in the Big 12, there's been some notable injuries, especially K-State obviously is another one. Kansas is another one. Oklahoma State, obviously. Texas might be undefeated if not for Quinn Ewers getting hurt. Texas Tech can't have a quarterback, it seems like. That's just their quarterback. They got to have 3 guys or 2 guys, or somebody's always injured. And so, yeah, the quarterback spot in particular has really been banged up, and that's had a huge effect on the conference.
Thank you for those on the chat room. The text line, 254-339-1122. Kendall Kaut will come back and discuss Baylor football and their win against Oklahoma, and today's Baylor men's basketball season opener, what he saw, what he wants to see, and what he wants to see more of or less. That's next on 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for the life of your vehicle and also for great customer service. And when you're buying it, for a great deal at the time of purchase. They are the people that you can count on. They're the people that I've counted on, even though I didn't buy my car from them originally when I've had to get some things repaired. They have been my go-to. Right now, the wait is over. Richard Carr has trucks and SUVs on the lot. 2022 Sierras, Acadias, Terrains have all arrived and are waiting for you to test drive today. They've also got Cadillac XT4 and XT5 SUVs available for a test drive, but inventory is going fast now that they've got some new models on the lot. Been a long wait for that, so if you are one of those folks that's in the mode for purchasing a new vehicle, get on over there fast, because now that they've arrived, they are a hot ticket. But maybe exactly what you're looking for is not out there on the lot. Get on their inbound vehicle list. You can cut in line and reserve the car, truck, or SUV that's in production but not quite in stock yet. Well, you can reserve yours and have a first-come, first-served priority once it arrives, or let them help you design the exact truck or SUV you want, and Richard Carr will have GMC prioritize it for you. So whatever you're looking for, new, pre-owned, something that's not quite ready yet, something that you like, but there may be some tweaks you want to make to it, whatever it is, they are the people that you can count on, and their customer service will ensure that you walk out or drive away with the vehicle that you've been wanting. For 23 years in Central Texas, Richard Carr's built a reputation as the people you can count on. Go check them out now off Highway 6 at the Imperial Exeter. Log on to richardcarr.com today.
I'm going to tell you a tale of two companies founded 25 years ago. The first, Pickup Outfitters, started as a little shop on Lake Erie Drive by a local company selling the truck bumpers they were making in Waco. Then, 6 years ago, new ownership took up the cause of battling vehicle nudity, vowing to fight until there were no more naked trucks in Central Texas. And so far, they estimate they've outfitted more than 40,000 trucks at Pickup Outfitters. Now, the second company's story is not as impressive. They too started 25 years ago, but didn't have the vision of Pickup Outfitters, and to date, they have not outfitted one single naked truck in 25 years. So we'll celebrate the 25th anniversary of Pickup Outfitters with money-saving specials and valuable prizes. The second company will support them too by giving away 25 one-month subscriptions to their online service called Netflix. Save and win the Pickup Outfitters 25th anniversary celebration through Thanksgiving. Details online at createacommotion.com.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
All right, earlier today, Baylor men's basketball ranked, of course, in the top 5, 117-53 over Mississippi Valley State. They, of course, eventually have games in their non-conference schedule that will absolutely test them. Great games to look forward to. And Kendall Kaut joins us, who covers Baylor men's basketball for us, along with he does columns and stuff on Baylor football on 365 Sports and SicEm365.com. Well, they're supposed to win big. Let's go down, Kendall. Thanks for your time. Let's go down perhaps 2, 3, or 4 things of interest that you saw, you wanted to see, you did see, and maybe the most impressive part, no matter who the opponent was.
Sure, Smokey. Always a pleasure to be on with you. I think it starts with how good Dale Bonner is. He had to play quite a few minutes last season with the injuries to Adam at times, James, and LJ Pryor missing 15 of the last 16 games for Baylor. He hit 3 out of 4 from 3, which is a marked improvement from a guy who was sub 20% last year. Again, he was over 40% from Fairmont. Seeing he gets that level, I think solidifies it. Right now, he's ahead of former high 4-star Langston Love. Adam Flagler at the point was exceptional today. And the effort from Keontae George defensively shows that he's not just a guy who's waiting to collect a paycheck in the NBA, but he's ready and willing to help Baylor win a national championship this season. So, Mississippi Valley State is going to be the worst team Baylor plays all season, but there's still something you can learn from how well you play against the team that you maybe have to get your own energy for beyond just the kids in the arena. Okay, Kendall, we need to either reconnect with you or it's very muffled. Paul's going to talk to you here for a second. We need to go back and look at a little bit of that as well. Baylor winning big. There was a stat, by the way, that was in the game. I saw this on Twitter. Baylor, in their first 97 years of existence of men's basketball, ranked 2 times. In the last 20 years under Scott Drew, they've now been ranked 311 times in the top 25 poll. Kendall, sorry about that. We had to reconnect with a little bit better audio. So the Dale Bonner played more minutes, right, than anyone could have ever thought last year. Is that what we're now seeing from him this year? Absolutely, Smokey. I don't know why the AirPods have betrayed me, but maybe Apple has betrayed us all for the final time, and I can switch to a new brand. I think on that front, yeah, he played way more, Smokey. Had to play a lot against North Carolina last season, but I think he's now clearly Baylor's 4th guard this season. He's handling backup point guard roles. He can shoot 75% from 3 on day one, and he just looks so comfortable taking 3 today that you feel really good. If, let's say, one of Baylor's guards has an injury again, we certainly don't want that this season, but you feel really good if Dale Bonner has to be a 30-minute-a-night guard. And I think if Dale Bonner's your 4th guard, it's kind of like 2 years ago where Adam Flagler was the 4th guard. It's just a ridiculous amount of riches for Baylor's offense once again.
Yeah, Kendall, you can't put too much on a game against Mississippi Valley State. I get that. But the way that this team has rotations and the way that they respond to hot streaks reminds me of a couple years ago where 2 years ago, if they got you on an 8-0 run, if you were down 8, then that game was over. This team might have to get you down 12, but it feels a little bit the same way, doesn't it?
I agree with that, Paul. Clark Kellogg calls it spurtability, where that team can kind of go on those runs, and you just feel like, okay, when's Baylor's run going to come? So if they stay within kind of striking distance, Keontae George is going to be a bucket. Didn't shoot the best today, still played great defense. LJ Pryor only goes 3 of 8 from 3 today, but he made a couple that he was well contested on. They're going to be a team that there used to be that adage that when Baylor were going to Allen Fieldhouse, they'd say, we got to be at least 15 points better than them because we feel like the refs are going to give them some calls. No matter where you're playing Baylor, you can play them in Las Vegas, you can play them in Waco, you can play them in Siena. You're going to have to be 15 points better than them to feel like you can survive an unbelievable barrage from 3. They're just that good this season.
Kendall, you mentioned Keontae George there. What did you think of the batch of newcomers, Bridges and Lohner as well?
Craig, I thought they looked pretty good today. I thought Lohner exceeded my expectations. King McClure on the broadcast kept talking about how he has incredible athleticism. It looked really good this summer. And then Jalen Bridges was pretty unselfish all day, did a nice driving with the ball, which often at West Virginia, he wasn't putting the ball on the floor quite as well. I'd heard this summer that his passing had really impressed the staff. So once he'll get the opportunity when maybe teams key in a little bit more on George, Flagler, and Pryor, I think we'll see more of those skills. But I certainly think those two beat expectations today.
So they were up big from the beginning. We knew that was going to happen. You mentioned in a couple of your responses, buy stock in Dale Bonner, great control. Keontae George, I think everyone will expect him to be the guy that scores a lot. But again, this is an unselfish team, and there's a lot of others who can shoot as well and score. What about him did you like the most other than what he can do with the basketball in his hands as far as shooting?
I think it's all defensively, Smokey. Sometimes his tape at IMG, it would feel like at times he might take a play off or two defensively because it was about getting buckets, scoring, because he's such a dominant scorer. some of that might reflect with how well he worked his body over the summer. He credited when I talked to him at Big 12 Media Days how Charlie Melton, Baylor's director of strength and performance, had really helped him out. And then he'd gone to a bunch of different camps over the summer, like Chris Paul's camp. And that's a really easy opportunity to eat poorly. Like, I'm going to be in Vegas next week for Baylor in the Continental Tires Classic. I can tell you right now, I'm going to eat at the buffet at Harris. I'm going to eat a steak dinner. I'm going to get Canes at 4 a.m. Now they got Racing Canes in Las Vegas. So really credit to him as a freshman that he has the discipline and presence of mind to not go crazy eating when he's traveling, because I'm going to tell you fellas right now, I'm going to be 15 pounds heavier when I come back from Vegas.
Kendall, this team is going to be very offensively driven, but you know that Scott Drew and his staff really focus on defense. Do you think that, not that they can be Davion Mitchell good, because that guy's kind of in a class all his own, but they can be on that level defensively as they were a couple years ago?
I think they can be one tier below that, Paul. I've set the barometer. Can they be a top 20 defense? Because I think the offense will be so dominant. Nobody as good as Davion Mitchell, as you mentioned, Paul. Nobody as good as Mark Vidal. And then Jared Butler and Maceo Teague, I thought were top 30 defenders in the sport by the end of the season. But you see how well Adam Flagler looked. We saw today how Keontae George was willing to take 2 charges where somebody's going to pay me $10 million in a contract the next season. I may not want to take that charge. And then Josh O had a few moments today where he looked a little out of position, but he was so skilled switching on the guards in the perimeter that you see why in a couple of years he's going to be an NBA player. So I think the defense lines up to be over that top 20 mark. I don't think it will be as dominant as Baylor's defense was 2 years ago, but I think at its apex, that defense was the best defense. As Seth Greenberg has said in the past, I know he's joined your all's program quite a few times. That was maybe the best defense since UNLV in the early 90s. But I think this is a tier below it. It could legitimately and literally be a top 10 defense this season.
Is the decision by D'Antoine Grimes, the Kilgore College transfer, is this just because of a numbers game at his position?
I think it is, Smokey. You look at clearly the 3 guards that started would be above him. Dale Bonner was what we saw today. And then Langston Love had some good moments today. I think his knee will only improve throughout the season. So if you look at it and you're Grimes, is it better for you to play 2 seasons from now or maybe only get mop-up duty this season? It takes some wherewithal and kind of knowing where you are in the rotation to be okay with as good as he was in Canada, saying, you know what, I'm probably not going to beat out these other guys, but watch out for me in 2 years. So I do think it was a numbers game, Smokey.
All right, we cannot let you go, and thank you for your time on the men's basketball team, and we'll have you on more than you're going to want to hear from us. But you, early before the season began, you were not at all high on Oklahoma football. You thought that there would be a drop. Obviously, there has been. You, even when you gave your prediction last week, said that this game was personal, like you were playing nose tackle or right guard. Your thoughts about the Oklahoma game and also Baylor and how they took care of business?
Smokey, I would say the subprime mortgage crisis, me asking out women that are out of my league, and parking my car in places that I'm going to be towed. I have a wherewithal for knowing when disaster is going to strike or when catastrophe is coming to people or institutions or life. And something just struck me about Oklahoma this season, that they had a new quarterback. Their defense lost a ton of guys. And Lincoln Riley was a phenomenal coach. Every OU fan likes to pretend he wasn't an incredible coach at Oklahoma. Clearly he was, getting Oklahoma consistently in the playoff. Yes, they weren't nearly as good as those SEC teams, but guess what? You're going to be even worse than those SEC teams now that you get to go face them. So a lot of great Oklahoma fans, a lot of great people at OU. I enjoy Oklahoma basketball. But all I'm saying is I knew disaster was coming. I knew they didn't have Lincoln Riley anymore. I knew their fans were ridiculous this summer when I pointed this out. And so, you know, some would say a better man wouldn't gloat right now, but I'm not a better man. It's not a new year right now. I wish the Oklahoma fans would wake up and realize that their best days are behind them. Fans of the Roman Empire in 475 AD had to know collapse was coming. In 1990 in the Soviet Union, you had to be prepared to know that the Eastern Bloc was going to stop being communist and go a different direction. And I'm telling OU fans right now, the era of OU football is past. It's time to get a new hobby. I tried to warn you all, and I'm sorry you didn't listen to me.
Baylor won by 3, Kendall.
I'm not, Smokey, I'm not saying Baylor's a playoff contender by any stretch. I'm just taking my lick with Oklahoma right now.
I know you are.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was.
He went down the history line. Right?
It was just that you said that there could be trouble on the horizon, and then I did think the funny thing was people going, "You've obviously never heard of Jeff Lebby." Like, well, that's not even. And just to put it in perspective, it's not even fair to Jeff Lebby to be like, "Well, he'll fix all the problems that they could have."
No, and I think he's done a pretty nice job there, Paul, this season. Obviously, I didn't see a tweet about 6 after 6 this season. I didn't see that tweet. I don't know. Maybe I just missed it. I don't follow him on Twitter. I didn't see that tweet. But I don't think he's the reason why they're kind of headed
into the toilet right now. I think it's that Oklahoma had some advantages. People have caught up to them, and now they're heading to a conference where people have more advantages in Oklahoma, and they're entering that conference at the exact time that they're getting kind of terrible at some of these sports, kind of the same way Mizzou was trending downward in football as they headed toward the SEC. So, I hope Oklahoma has this day in the future that they can prove me wrong. They just haven't proved me wrong at all this season, but, maybe next year's their year. It hasn't been their year in 22 years at the football level. And I think the last time they made the Final Four in basketball, they lost by 35 to Villanova. But there's always the next decade, I guess, for the Sooners.
All right, Kendall. Craig, anything you want to add to that? Thank you very much for your time. Kendall Kaut, I'll give you his home number and address here in a moment if you're from the state of Oklahoma. Yeah, that was it was a competitive game, but OU is obviously, it's just something we haven't seen really in a long, long time since back before Stoops began. And, it looked like they kind of turned the corner. They did. It was competitive, but they still have to finish games off and get one more win to get to a bowl game.
I mean, the two topics, the way he's coming at it are kind of, different, or not even the way he's coming at it. I mean, the loss to Baylor is one thing on Saturday. The rest of that's another thing entirely. Now, one might be a symptom of the other, but, I mean, yeah, Baylor played better. Baylor had 3 first-half turnovers, and Baylor won by a field goal, when all was said and done. So that was not anywhere close to the best Oklahoma team that we've seen in recent years. And yet, they were still sitting there with an opportunity to win that game. Now, as to his other, so here's where I am. I think Brent Venables is a fine head coach for right now. I really don't know what to expect and how quickly to expect it moving forward because the SEC wild card just throws everything for a loop. If they were sticking around in the Big 12, then I could confidently say, just give them a little bit of time. They'll be fine. Just give them a recruiting class or two, transfer portal, and they'll be back in no time. But you go from an era where you had Heisman quarterback after Heisman quarterback after Heisman quarterback. You just don't just lose that and then just this guy was better or is better. It's no, you don't just overcome that right away and that quickly, no matter if you go get Dylan Gabriel or not. I mean, they were in a special run with Lincoln Riley, and the ending was really bad. And maybe he reached his ceiling. I have no idea. But, yeah, the thought that this was just going to not skip a beat when Caleb Williams is out the door and Lincoln Riley's out the door and all these others are out the door. I mean, you had to have known, this was not going to be the typical 10-2, and that's a bad year type of year. But yet there was a very loud, and maybe it was just trying to, deal with it, was how they, just convince yourself, no, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. No, it's really not. And this year, it's not been a disaster, but yeah, they're 5-4, and it's mid-November practically, and they're not bowl eligible. For Oklahoma to not be bowl eligible by mid-November is not normal in any way, shape, or form the last 20 years, really. So, I mean, this year as a whole, I think it's been a learning curve. I think it's been baby steps and then 1 step forward, 2 steps back, and it's been a lot in the air. I'm not worried about them, short term. I think Venables will do okay. And this year I can understand. I'm not stepping on the edge of a cliff because they're 5-4. But in the long-term outlook, I've been saying this for a while now. I don't love the SEC move, and I never have, and I don't know that I ever will, because I do think it puts them dangerously closer towards being a South Carolina than it does being an Oklahoma. And, you can tell me about all the riches and the great primetime matchups and all these things that come in with the, being in the SEC will give them. And I get that in the era of NIL, Oklahoma will still be attractive, and now they'll have more money than ever. But the problem is, man, is they went from being a great white with maybe one other great white that they were actually bigger than, because when it came down to fighting, they'd normally win that fight, to now being in there with 5 or 6 other great whites, and a couple of them are better than them all time, and a few of them are better than them right now. And that's not going to change just because Brent Venables has an off season. You know what I mean? And so I hope they know what they got themselves into. I know, security-wise, they'll never have to fret ever. Oklahoma football will, be healthy as ever in terms of finances and matchups and TV time and all that stuff, man. But as far as the success goes, one of the first things I think I said was all those people that were taking title after title after title for granted. The Big 12 stinks. Who cares about winning the Big 12? We've done that year after year. Who cares? Okay. I understand why you kind of got bored with it and you play with your food a little bit, but you're biting off a whole lot more now than you were ever trying to attempt to chew before. And I think people know that, but I don't know how many people really know that, because I don't see just some smooth entrance off into the SEC where everything's the way that Oklahoma fans have known them to be for the last couple decades in particular.
By the way, Sir blah, 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 the Holy Roman Empire was neither Holy Roman nor an empire. Yeah, thank you very much for that.
I think that, if Lincoln Riley was still there and he was a lifer at OU, then that transition would be certainly easier, because quarterback-wise, He has that magic touch of being able to call up a quarterback and going, would you like to win a Heisman Trophy? Brent Venables doesn't have that pelt in his wall yet. And Jeff Lebby kind of does, because he was on the staff with RG3, but he was a little further down the chain when that happened. And so they've got things that they have to overcome, and it's still 2 more years, 2 more seasons in the Big 12. They have to fight out of doing it and try to get some sort of lead going in, and nobody in the SEC is going to sit and wait for you. So you better hope that.
Well, it's like, okay, Jackson Arnold's coming in. Great. So is Arch Manning. So is Iamaleava at Tennessee. So, everybody's going to have their version of Jackson Arnold. So, I see that, and that's a place to point to that's a positive, is hey, there's a great quarterback coming in, but a bunch of other teams that are right there at your level have great quarterbacks coming in too. That's not just the magic fixer. And Dylan Gabriel's not the only reason they lost that game on Saturday. He played a big role in it with those 3 interceptions, but those were deflections, and for the most part. And that wasn't all on his shoulders. But, yeah, I mean, it's Oklahoma. I don't feel like the sky's falling and they're not going to be making bowl games with regularity or anything like that. But I said this at the very beginning when they were first announced towards the SEC, of just those days of taking Big 12 titles year after year after year for granted and basically having a cakewalk into the college football playoff, so long as you handled your business like you were expected to do, those days are over. All caps over. And how they get back to even approaching those days and how long that takes is going to be a big question. I don't think they're Missouri, but I don't think they're also just waltzing in and being the next Alabama either,
We've discussed this, 2 fan bases that have probably rarely ever in their lifetime been rejected by anybody were rejected when Notre Dame lost Brian Kelly, and they all but basically torched his everything and brought in a guy, Marcus Freeman, who hopefully will have success there. And it was the crack of all jokes. Brian Kelly this and that, and Freeman's recruiting. And I like Marcus Freeman's a good dude. And then Lincoln Riley. Notre Dame and Oklahoma. Chuck Fairbanks left Oklahoma to go to the NFL, like some coaches do. After that, Switzer left because he was forced out. They would still love for him to be there, and he was an amazing coach there. And then they went through Gibbs, Snellenberger, and John Blake for a decade. Stoops comes in, unbelievable run. And now they have Lincoln Riley for a short term, 2 fan bases, and most anything else, they're bitter because somebody actually said they thought something else was better other than Chuck Fairbanks, and that was the NFL.
It's also just not fair to the new coach to be like, hey, you're automatically going to be better than this guy we just did. Just let him get to his spot.
Yeah, I think it was coping,
yeah.
Paul.
And that's
what it is.
Yeah.
I understand it. People were trying to convince themselves, I know everything's going to be okay, like I said. And you had to know, losing Lincoln Riley and then going and getting Brent Venables, it's just not that simple. And, obviously I'm an Oklahoma fan. I still believe in the program. I don't want this to sound like sky is falling. It's just more of, the realization as we get farther down the line, and here they are, and it's November 7th, and they still need another win to get to a bowl game. They're not in the SEC yet. You know what I mean? So hopefully Venables does improve and get better, and there's reasons to believe that they will, but it's just that future's not as certain as it used to look.
One thing, though, and I know the SEC has won a bucket load of national titles. We're not trying to argue that, but there is no Vanderbilt on this schedule. There is no gimme on this schedule. Though there have been in the past, and basically whoever Oklahoma played as good as they were and dominant as they were, there was a gimme or so that they could just basically just show up and they're going to win, as Switzer used to say, by hanging a half 100. And then Stoops' teams did that for the longest of time. So,
are you saying that in regards to winning another game, or just in general? There's not a
the rest of their schedule that they have this year. I'm not saying they may win 3 in a row. They play at West Virginia, they're a mess. Oklahoma State, they're a mess.
Yeah.
Texas Tech in Lubbock. Well, we'll see what happens where they are in 3 weeks. All right, good stuff. Great comments, great opinions. Kendall Cal, appreciate his time. Come back with a couple of more notes, another note or two about the new top 25, your thoughts about the top 4 teams. I think we have covered almost, Evan Cooper, former Baylor. He was a part of the football operations department, was on that staff with Matt Rule at Carolina. He was fired today by Carolina as a part of the NFL a few weeks after the fact that they lost Matt Rule when he was fired by the Panthers.
Well, if you want a recruiting guy in college football, it's pretty good.
Yep.
I'm sure his phone's already ringing, and I don't know what his hopes are, if he wants to hang around the NFL or what his dreams were. We talked to him maybe 2 or 3 times, but we never got that deep into it with him. But yeah, I mean, he knows how to recruit. He helped build that class that won a Big 12 title last year. Jalen Petrie was already on board, but all the rest of those guys were pretty much, right? I mean, the majority of them, except for Tejada, McVay, and Petrie, were all guys, I think, that came after that. So he was a part of that, building up with Matt Rule and then leading him to where Aranda eventually took them last year. So, yeah, I'll be very curious to see where he lands.
When we come back, some football notes from the media blitz that we get, a college football media blitz, and also we will get on and look. If you have a super chat, that's great. If it's not a super chat, that's fine too, on the chat room, and also about to dig into the text line at 254-339-1122.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine. I actually stopped by there after the show on Saturday night to pick up a bottle of Rumble, Balcones Rumble, so I could enjoy some during the FSU-Miami game. By the way, worst ever road loss in the rivalry. Just thought I'd get that in at some point during the show, but did enjoy some of that. And they have the best selection of Texas craft whiskeys in the state of Texas. Also, look, as I was walking down the aisles, they don't have a bad selection of Tennessee whiskeys or Kentucky whiskeys or anywhere whiskeys. They've got a great selection of everything at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Great selection of craft beer, great customer service, great everything there. When I asked about a couple things that they might have in or might come in, they had the dates down, they do everything that was going on, and that's not even asking Jeffrey or anybody that was in charge. That was just the staff there. That's how well-trained they are and how great they are at customer service. Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Don't forget about the speedy drive-through window. Plus, they're also available on DoorDash. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, behind the bank. Check him out on DoorDash.
Richard Carr GMC has the trucks. 2022 GMC Sierras have hit the lot, and they're waiting for you. Sierra trucks offer best-in-class towing, strong steel beds, multi-pro tailgates, and advanced features that make driving a Sierra second to none. Trucks are waiting for you to test drive now. So call now, log in now, or get here now and drive your next truck today at Richard Carr.
Richard Carr, they have the truck for you. TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T is board-certified physician consultations, will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today, just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway. Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select Choice and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
He'll pitch it out to Squirrel Williams. He's got it inside into the Crimson. Baylor with a touchdown.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones Investments and financial advisor Chuck Verno.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
We have looked at everything, I think, everything we can. We probably could even talk more about Georgia manhandling Tennessee and what that means and LSU's win against Alabama. Here's a couple of nuggets. This is the Blitz. I get this every Sunday afternoon. It's very good in college football. SMU, we went over this, the second highest scoring game in FBS history and the most ever in regulation. Tanner Mordecai's the first player in FBS history to have 7 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown and a half. The last to do it, being responsible for 8 touchdowns and a half as a quarterback, is Lamar Jackson at Louisville.
He plays tonight in Monday Night Football. I need him to do well in a fantasy game. So I'm not surprised. I was waiting for you to say Lamar Jackson because that's kind of what he did.
Kansas bowl eligible for the first time since 2008. 128 different programs have played at least one bowl game since that time.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Jason Bean played well. Again, Oklahoma State's just falling apart at the seams, it seems like. And I don't know, Gundy didn't seem to really give the old, reassurance that they're all going to be back at some point. The guys that have been missing time, or in particular Spencer Sanders, it's a question mark about when he'll be back. So, that remains to be puzzling. And in terms of how they finished the season. But for Kansas, great win. I mean, if I had known Spencer Sanders wasn't playing for sure, I probably should have picked against them anyways, but definitely would have. But they went out and did their thing, and Devin Neal was fantastic. Great day for him, career day for him, and kudos to the Jayhawks. It's a big deal to get bowl eligible. I mean, that's something that is just getting glossed over, I think, in talking about Baylor, Oklahoma, is Baylor didn't have a guaranteed path to a bowl game as of about 2 weeks ago. And now they've gone and won in Lubbock and won in Norman, which at the beginning of the year were definitely not guaranteed wins. And now because of that, they're bowl eligible. But had they entered next week at 5 wins and had to play TCU or K-State, TCU, Texas, they'd maybe not make a bowl game, like legitimately might not make a bowl game. And instead, they get to at least breathe a sigh of relief. So for Kansas, for Baylor, for anybody, I know it becomes old hat and it's just commonplace to make them, but you realize how poor they are when you're suddenly not in one and you don't get that extra time. And especially for a program like Kansas that could use all the extra time in the world, could use something like that to build up in recruiting and pitch to guys about how the program's growing. That's huge for them for a million different reasons.
Baylor went, 16 or 17 years without a bowl game. They celebrated when they got their 6th win against Kansas State in 2010. They have now been, I think, to 10 of the last 12 years since that time, but you never take that for granted. Now, Tennessee has now lost 14 consecutive games against the AP's number 1 ranked team. Well, they're ranked number 1 for usually a reason. Now, sometimes we can argue with who's number 1, but they've now lost 14 straight. I don't know what the overall, like who's lost 13 straight or 10 teams have lost 12 straight or what, but Tennessee specifically has lost 14 consecutive games against the AP's number 1 ranked team.
Yeah, I still wish I would have known it had been raining. My problem is I don't trust weathermen.
And I wish I would have known Spencer Sanders was not going to play, although we did know that was at least out there.
Yeah, I didn't know it was going to rain in Athens on Saturday, but look, they're still good.
Would the result have been that much different?
No. I mean, it would have made me not
I
pick
understand.
it. Yeah,
I'm just saying in general, because I've seen that from some Tennessee fans, of course, and it's like, I still think Georgia wins that game.
I do. But it just
maybe it's even more.
My pick, it was like, I was right on the line, and I said, Tennessee's a team of destiny, and that nonsense in my brain would have gotten knocked out if I didn't know it was raining.
Yeah.
So
all right.
that's why I didn't. But yeah, Georgia was clearly the better team. They physically mauled them. They were ready for Tennessee's offense. They wanted to make sure that Tennessee remembered, like, the SEC East is ours, and you're going to have to take it from us, and we're not going to let it go willingly.
We're not just going to surrender.
Yeah, and it was, Stetson Bennett was really good. And
I thought the
defense was fantastic.
Scrambled, hit the pylon. It was a Heisman. I'm not saying he's going to win the Heisman or even get votes. He should get something, but that was a big boy athletic play that sometimes when you look at him, you don't think he has that in him, and he damn sure did.
Well, I mean, it's I feel dumb because I don't feel dumb about picking Tennessee. I mean, you're going with the hot hand. I feel dumb that, not giving more credence to the fact that it was in Athens. But, outside of that, I think, anybody who was picking Tennessee had every reason to feel great about, the direction that they were going and the excitement that was being generated in this offense and all of that. But, sometimes you just run into reality, and reality is Georgia's the best damn football team in the country. I mean, that's it. They are. And they're the defending champs, and they're going to be that until somebody knocks them off. And, maybe it's LSU in the title game or something, but that was a huge challenge for the Dogs to get, over. And now they've got that behind them and can focus in on closing out this year on a strong note. But, yeah, they'll be number 1, and rightfully so. And they flex their muscle. And it reminded me of when you get some of those those old Baylor teams that are running they were running that same offense that Tennessee now runs. And, if things are clicking, it's great. But when things suddenly get a little sideways, it can fall apart and look ugly really, really quickly. And when Jalen Hyatt's not allowed to just run free, past everybody, and you suddenly make it, a little bit more difficult than just get the ball to Jalen Hyatt.
Right.
And Hendon Hooker suddenly facing way more pressure than he's accustomed to. It's a different story. And, Tennessee faced some adversity that they haven't quite faced this season, and faced the best team they've faced all season. And reality, when all was said and done, was the crowd, the team, the coaching, the key plays, all that was in Georgia's favor. So credit to the Dogs for that.
They flexed every possible football muscle you could in that game against Tennessee. And who knows, again, what is down the road for them and who they play, LSU or possibly who is going to be. Ole Miss in Alabama this week and a couple of bangers. We'll get into that in a second. Now, here's a note. Power 5 quarterbacks with 20 passing touchdowns and 10 rushing touchdowns through 8 games in a season since 2000, the year Oklahoma won the national title. Lamar Jackson again, Patrick Mahomes, who last night in the last 10 minutes of that game was just crazy good, Jalen Hurts, and Bo Nix.
Bo Nix needs to be, right now, he needs to be sitting in one of those chairs in New York. He really does. He's been fantastic. There's many deserving Heisman candidates this year, but what Kenny Dillingham and Dan Lanning have done for Bo Nix's ability and confidence, and whatever he was running through his head down there at Auburn, clearly has gotten exercised in Eugene, and he is fantastic.
All right,
He's
you
fun
say
to
he
watch.
should be in one of those chairs. Let's say there are 4 chairs.
He just took Hendon Hookers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Simple enough.
Okay, who else?
I mean, C.J. Stroud's probably going to be there.
Or maybe he took Bryce Young's.
Yeah.
One of those guys, maybe.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Bryce Young, he doesn't have much protection. It's interesting what happens, but there was a play he made that was Houdini-like, and yet again, LSU found a way, and what a pair of boom for Brian Kelly, huh?
Yeah.
Garrett, you as an LSU fan, did you be honest? When they said he's going for 2, were you puckered up a little bit?
I was, but I was excited. I was kind of disappointed they didn't try to finish the game, that they took it into overtime. I thought you had Alabama reeling a little bit, cease the moment. So when he decided to go for 2, I was all on board, man. Once it was over and Mason made that touchdown, I mean, I went insane in my living room.
That kid's a freshman
He's
tight
a
end.
freshman.
Made a big play in the end zone for a touchdown. He's a freshman.
How have your opinions changed since the year started?
I was never really too big on the Brian Kelly hire, simply from a personality standpoint. I think he's, Paul, you mentioned earlier, he's kind of quirky. He's goofy a little bit, but you can't deny his ability to coach. What he's been able to get out of Jalen Daniels has been really impressive. It's weird to think that their best 2 quarterbacks, arguably in program history, came courtesy of the transfer portal. When you look at that. But, man, Harold Perkins is the future. I haven't seen a freshman play with that much tenacity since the Honey Badger. The running backs, you finally got them to step up. Williams had a big game. Emory had a big game.
They got some dogs at receiver, too.
They got some dogs.
Yeah.
And Neighbors, Neighbors made Eli Ricks. He gave him the business all night long. So it was a lot of fun. I was really enjoyed it.
I saw a note that, and from some of the guys that watch football, break down the video, and scouts, whatever, former NFL scouts, that and I don't know if this is true, that one of the things that Alabama's made a mistake with this year is they're trying to still play what they do man-to-man. They've had great corners for the longest of time, and that this year they don't really have those dogs, Surtain, among others, a bunch, just name them, over the last several years.
Are you talking about in their secondary?
Yeah, the cornerbacks, yeah.
Look at their wide receivers. Who is their guy?
Yeah, they're getting no separation.
Who is the number 1 draft pick? They've had a litany of those players for a decade plus, however far you want to go back, they've always got some guy, and they've got talented players, but they don't have their typical game-breaking, Biletnikoff award-winning, top 5 NFL draft pick, dominant wide receiver, or pair or trio of guys they've had in the past.
And now their step down is not as severe as other people who get rated in the draft like that. But look, they are, outside of Bryce Young and maybe a couple other players, they are just a little bit worse at every position than they were a year ago, and it shows. And look, they're a little bit worse is still better than everybody else except for a couple teams.
We're spoiled. They spoil
they
people.
spoil their fans. They spoil. So that's what it is. And yet they're a little more vulnerable, and they've been exploited. I loved, by the way, the 2-point conversion, because sometimes I think coaches get in the mode of okay, let's just play ping pong with them.
Kick the can down the road.
You do not play ping pong with teams like Alabama and Georgia. The great teams, when you have them on the ropes, don't give them another opportunity. Don't let, the smartest thing about it is, don't let Bryce Young come back out on the field.
Yeah.
Either way, he's not coming back out because you lost or you won.
Best 4 top 25 matchups. Alabama plays at Ole Miss. Washington plays at Oregon. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
I said the best ranked games.
No,
that doesn't mean TCU at Texas and UCF at Tulane, which we highlighted with Marc Daniels, and also the TCU game with Brian Estridge.
Yeah, maybe Washington-Oregon turns out to be a terrific game. It's a nice little rivalry and all that, but just Washington's run out a little bit of steam compared to where they were at the beginning of the year, whereas Oregon's continued to gain it. So kudos to the Ducks. And, I don't know if anybody was happier than them with that result on Saturday. The fact that your only loss is to Georgia. Now, granted, the bad part about it is that you got blown out by Georgia, but that's your only blemish, and now you've gone and you played really well, and obviously Bo Nix is getting a lot of credit and a lot of attention, and perhaps even some Heisman love, and so if the Ducks just keep on doing their thing, I'll be very curious to see at what point we like, how long does that Georgia loss linger and hurt them? I mean, if they win out the rest of their schedule and you say the only loss they have is this very beginning of the year to the team who's the unanimous number one team in the country, perhaps by that stage, Georgia, can you just overlook that much of a blowout? You know what I'm saying?
Well, last week we said that you can't lose 48-0. Of course, Oklahoma State was their second loss, and now they have 3. You can't lose 48-0 to somebody. Well, that was very similar to the score. I'm of the belief that you can be a hell of a lot better in a couple of months after where you were at the start of the year. Yeah, you'd like to be careful about a rematch, but we've seen SEC teams have rematches within a couple of weeks or even earlier in the year. If Oregon runs the table and a couple of other things happen along the way, somebody else, someone will, no matter we see Michigan, Ohio State on this collision course, but someone else who stubs their toe or hits their shin against a table, then it opens the door. TCU, of course, has a hard schedule down the stretch. They keep surviving, and that sounds like they're barely winning. No, they're good. They're 9-0, but now, again, have another test on Saturday in Austin.
Oregon's biggest test is going to be Utah coming up next week or in a couple weeks.
Well,
but, if they get past that, I'm just saying you lost by 46 points in your season opener, and yet you run the table the rest of the way. You still lost by 46 points in your season opener, so that's just going to be weird how that gets viewed. But, again, yeah, they got to beat Washington, which is not a given necessarily, and definitely not a given against Utah. Oregon State, closer to a given than anything, but you never know in a rivalry game. So, yeah, that's going to be an interesting stretch for the Ducks to close out.
Steve is in Florida right now, visiting just the state to get away. His father had passed away. Cincinnati fan here. I draw parallels between them last year, Cincinnati, and TCU this year. Lack of respect across certain segments of college football fans. Hopefully TCU wins out. Certainly not an easy task. Was fun for the Bearcats. Hopefully Horned Frogs can experience the same thing. And speaking of Florida, where I have 3 brothers, there is Hurricane Nicole that seems to be kind of flirting with what might be the entire state of Florida. So watch out for that. And as far as the weather, that's right now just a forecast. We'll see what happens and wish the best. As we said also on Saturday to those in Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, from all the high winds and some tornadoes that ravaged certain parts of our area to the north. This is 365 Sports.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgin Ford.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. The team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneeredboys.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
Looking for a great job with great pay and awesome benefits? Genco FCU is hiring. As a longtime Waco employer, Genco focuses on what matters most in our employees' lives, like pay incentives, bonuses, benefits, 401k plans, paid time off, advancement opportunities, medical, prescription, dental, and vision insurance, as well as short and long-term disability. Come join our incredible team today and make Genco your career that will work for you. Apply at gencofcu.org or at any branch location.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
First and goal. He's found 5 different targets. He's going to hand it off. It's Pollard, and he's across for the Dallas touchdown.
It's time for our weekly segment with David Helman of FoxSports.com.
David Helman, Fox Sports, covers the NFL, covers the Cowboys, but let's just start off with something that makes him feel, I don't even know if he's able to comprehend anything after what happened Saturday in Baton Rouge. David Helman, how about your LSU Tigers?
How about them Tigers? No R. There's no R. It's Tiger. And hell yeah, how about them? My God. What a damn game. And life is weird, man. I moved out to LA. I started doing this TV show with the incomparable Joy Taylor, a wonderful coworker. And before the season started, she was like, "Oh, my nephew plays for LSU. His name's Mason." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool. He's Jason Taylor's kid. He's probably pretty good at football." Had no idea that 2 months later he'd be making one of the most iconic plays in LSU football history. But here we are. And yeah, man, it's been a really fun season. Yeah, I'm on cloud 9. You can't tell.
David, I don't know if people have seen it, but I was just telling Garrett, who's also an LSU fan, about this during the break, our producer, that during the FSU Miami blowout, one of the cameramen went up to Jason Taylor, who's on the Miami staff, and told him what had just happened, and his eyes almost bugged out of his head. He was so happy.
Oh, no, I haven't seen that, but I need to go find it. Because, hey, big win for the Noles, too, which, yeah, that's kind of that's a funny juxtaposition. Obviously, not a very good night for Miami football. But that's cool that Jason was able to take that moment. Sure, he would have preferred to be there. I actually, Joy and I both were weighing the merits of flying in for the game and flying back out so we could get back out to work. And both of us ultimately decided not to. And still very happy with the win, but yeah, I have a little bit of regret that I didn't pull the trigger on buying a flight.
Well, you should enjoy it, and obviously you still are. That was tremendous. What a game! What a night it was Saturday night. Okay, Cowboys have the week off. Game tonight: Ravens and Saints. Cowboys back in action in what appears to be a shell of a team in Green Bay and their Hall of Fame quarterback in Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I'm gonna write about that this week. It's just very funny to me. And look, the Packers look terrible. I mean, if you didn't watch their game yesterday, I'll spare you the time and just say, like, their offense looks like a husk, and Aaron Rodgers kind of looks like a husk of himself. But the funny thing for me is that shouldn't make any Cowboy fan feel better. Aaron Rodgers kind of has boogeyman status among Cowboy fans, and rightfully so. I mean, he's still one of the all-time greats, and everybody I know is like, man, wouldn't it just be typical Cowboys if he flips the switch and plays like an all-pro against Dallas? And, I mean, it's hard to look at what the Packers are doing and have confidence that he can do that, but it would be very, very Cowboys if that were to happen. So this is, even as bad as Green Bay looks, this is a fun opportunity for the Cowboys, because obviously you get a big win against an NFC opponent and build your case for being a playoff team even stronger. But then on top of that, I think maybe you can slay the demon a little bit. And, I think it would make the organization and the fan base feel really good to be able to get one over on Aaron Rodgers for a change.
Yeah, I do kind of feel that, like, there should be on paper no reason for the Cowboys coming off a bye, as healthy as they've been all year and all that, to be nervous. But they don't play the games on paper, and Aaron Rodgers is there. And David, I still know that you and I were both there at the game when he threw the best pass I think I've ever seen a human being throw, that wound up beating them in a game that they thought dead to rights and won. So he is the ghost that will continue to haunt them until he retires. And I don't care, 3-6, everybody's injured or anything.
Yeah, totally. I mean, 2016 is obvious because, yeah, I'm with you. That's definitely, if it's not the best throw I've ever seen, it's on a short list. But, I mean, he did it in 2014, obviously. And then it gets forgotten because that was a disappointing season, but he only needed 30 seconds to break their hearts in 2017, the year after that playoff loss, right there at AT&T Stadium. So, ironically, the Cowboys' only win against Rodgers, I believe, or the only one in recent memory anyway, was at Lambeau when Dak was a rookie. And fittingly, it was the Cowboys' pass rush that beat him up and forced a bunch of fumbles. So I have a feeling the Cowboys will be trying to replicate that recipe for success. But, yeah, I mean, there is no good argument for the Packers winning this game. But I think a lot of Cowboy fans feel like you that, they're going to hold their breath until the clock hits 000.
What's happened to them? I know that there's this debate about the receivers, and Rodgers has made some guys look good and they lost more. What's happened to them in your opinion?
We actually talked about this on our show Speak like an hour ago. I just think the Packers have left themselves very little room for error. Like, obviously, you trade away Devontae Adams. You give Aaron Rodgers a gigantic contract that eats up a ton of the cap. You draft a bunch of defensive players instead of offensive players to complement that with. And number one, it's not helping. Like, their defense is not playing on a level that reflects the amount of talent that it has. I mean, they played well against Detroit yesterday, but it's Detroit. They have not played well in big spots against better teams. But then on top of that, you're basically, with the way they're constructed on offense, you're asking Aaron Rodgers to be perfect for them to be good. And they've gotten away with that for a long time. He doesn't have the best resume. Obviously Tom Brady has accomplished way more than Aaron Rodgers ever has. But, just as the best pure thrower of the football, I think Aaron Rodgers is the best that I've ever seen when it comes to, arm talent, escapability, making every throw, making clutch throws. So they've gotten away with living that way for a long time. And Aaron Rodgers is in his late 30s. He looks nowhere near as mobile as the guy who used to kill the Cowboys all the time. He has very little to work with at any skill position outside of running back, and even some of those guys are hurt. And so I just think you're seeing, if you're only good when Aaron Rodgers is perfect, then how bad are you when Aaron Rodgers is bad? And Aaron Rodgers is bad right now.
David, could you draw some parallels between what the Packers have done with kind of letting Aaron Rodgers have his way completely with what the Lakers did with LeBron James and it's just not working out?
That's interesting. And, like, I'll be totally honest. Like, I don't pay close enough attention to basketball to be able to go through everything the Lakers have done. I think it's interesting because, ironically, the Packers' whole, like, uneasy marriage with Rodgers started because they weren't consulting him on anything. Like, he was basically like, I'm Aaron Rodgers, and I feel like I have no say in the way that this team runs business. And then, ironically, they changed that the last 2 years. And, if this is what Aaron Rodgers wants, then it's very perplexing, maybe you have to trade away Devontae Adams because you can't make the cap space work, but there's a million other things this team could have done, from further bolstering the offensive line to, again, using major draft picks on receivers. I mean, the big receiver move that they made was drafting Christian Watson. And if drafting an FCS player in the second round is your idea of a big acquisition, then I've just got news for you. So, from every indication, it seems like the Packers and Rodgers have been on more of the same page in terms of that stuff over the last few years. But it doesn't really look like it. Again, they used 2 first-round picks on defenders last year. And again, I think they have 7 first-round picks on their defense, not playing anywhere near as well as that amount of talent would that you would expect. And then, this is a talent deficient offense in my opinion. So, I don't know how good the parallel is to LeBron James, but if Aaron Rodgers had a say in how a lot of this went down, maybe he should have had a larger say or what. I don't know, but man, they just look like a mess in pretty much every facet.
Perhaps I have not been paying enough attention. It snuck up on me. I was watching the Titans and Chiefs, and my God, Tennessee had everything going their way for about 3 2/3 of a quarter, and then Patrick Mahomes became a freak on a 3rd and 19 scramble. But Titans started 0-2, won 5 in a row. They're 5-3. Chargers started 1-2, won 4 of 5. They're 5-3. Cincinnati was 0-2, 2-3. They had a bad loss to the Browns a week or two ago, but they're 5-4. Which of those 3 teams do you think is the best of the ones who have kind of pulled themselves out of the ditch?
Oh, man, that's a really good question. Titans, Chargers, Bengals?
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. Bringing up the Titans-Chiefs game, like, there's a million ways you can win a football game. But the Chiefs demonstrated, it's football 101. I'm not saying anything that's not crazy obvious, but, like, when you have a Patrick Mahomes, it just tilts the scales in your favor so crazily. Like, the Titans did everything right for 50 of 60 minutes, and then Patrick Mahomes was like, all right, enough of this. I'm going to do it myself. And he did. And, that's got to be so disheartening when you come as close, like you played as close to perfect as you can, considering that you're starting a rookie quarterback, and you get so close, and Patrick Mahomes is like, nah, we're done here. And so I bring that up to say, like, I'm going to go with the team that has the best collection of talent to go with its quarterback. Like, Justin Herbert might be the most purely talented guy in the NFL right now, but the injuries on that team, it's hard to buy into the Chargers with all of the stuff that they're missing. And so I look at the Bengals. That offense is going to find ways to score points. They'll get Jamar Chase back eventually, and the defense is better than it gets credit for. So, I'm not picking the Bengals to make a return trip to the Super Bowl, but I trust them a lot more than the other two to find ways to win more often than not.
I was watching the end of the Titans game, and you back yet? So they're up 17-9, right? And they have 23 plays. Derrick Henry gets 6 carries. They punt 5 consecutive downs, and Willis is 1 of 8 for -4 yards passing. It's like, give the ball to Derrick Henry and get him 2 yards, 2 yards, 2 yards, and punt. You'd be better off than that.
Yeah, and I think to some degree you probably worry about becoming just completely one-dimensional. But if there's one guy that can still succeed when everybody knows it's about to be a run, it's probably Derrick Henry. And it is really wild that his game, he's so big and doesn't do as much in the passing game as other running backs. Like, it's very weird to see situations where the Titans will take him off the field in a 2-minute situation or in a hurry-up situation. And it's like, man, I see the logic here, but I'm just not sure it's a good idea to take easily your best player off the field in crunch time, especially when you don't have a quarterback.
David, thank you. Continue to celebrate. I know you will. LSU with a great win. And Brian Kelly with a pair. They're brass after going for 2 and beating Alabama. David Helman, our great friend, Fox Sports, covers the Cowboys and the National Football League. Sports tonight at 10:30 on the CW channel. Baylor, Kansas State pregame Saturday at 4 on the CW channel. And we have a lot more to get to, including to wrap it up with Paul Catalina's Top 5.
During Ram Power Days at Allen Samuels, our great selection of new cars and trucks come with amazing deals and competitive financing that makes you ask, why shop anywhere else? The new 2022 Ram trucks are designed to be durable, functional, and stylish. These legendary, award-winning trucks give you that first-class feel. Luxurious leather trim seating options, exceptional legroom and storage, plus surround view camera options you'd expect from a premium truck. Come see our selection today or browse online at allensamuelsdcj.com.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
Top 5 answers to the big weekend questions. The big questions going into the weekend. This is to recap because a lot of these things had different outcomes than we discussed, or the outcome that would have been kind of more wild. So I'm going to revisit the top 5 from Friday. Number 5, does Penn State change QBs? Yeah, they did. And it was a game that they won, but Drew Allen played a lot, and he came in and after Sean Clifford threw an interception. So I don't know how much they keep going forward in this, but they did change with the QBs, and Aller was really, really good. Threw for 2 touchdowns, I think ran for another one. And, again, they were playing Indiana, so not to get, make too much of this, but that was also a good game to do that in because you knew you were probably going to win either way. But they did change QBs, and Drew Aller got a lot more time than maybe, James Franklin led on early in the week.
I mean, yeah, Clifford still played a good deal. Aller saw time, but Clifford had the start, the stats, and all of that. I did have the interception, like you mentioned, but Aller had their scores. So, yeah, I don't know how you look at that as replacing him or what have you. But, yeah, didn't have any trouble with Indiana, which was to be expected, and that's a win that you knew they were going to grab. But, we got to see a bit more Drew Aller than we've seen so far this year.
It was a good game to work it in to transition, maybe. I think that's the plan they used. So it maybe wasn't yes, it was kind of like, well, kind of. They did. Number 4.
Which means it was a good thing to have in your top 5.
Yeah. Number 4, can LSU keep Bama off kilter? Oh, for sure they can. They absolutely kept Bama off kilter, and it was the 4th game that's come down to the wire for Alabama this year. They're 2-2 in those games, and Brian Kelly goes for 2. But yeah, Alabama was not. They were not feeling good all night long. I mean, they were, just never. And look, neither team was in control of the game, but that's what we kind of expected. But Alabama is used to being the team that dictates the tempo. They weren't able to do that, and their kind of bad habits and dumb football, IQ really came back to haunt him again.
Bryce Young threw 51 passes and completed only 25, had a bunch of yards, but 1 touchdown, a pick that was a bad pick. Man, and the 1 touchdown, I think there was a Houdini play that he was a part of, and yeah, Craig, they just looked like they woke up on the wrong side of the pillow.
Or maybe they're just not that great.
Yeah.
I think that's more like it.
Yep.
I think at this point, it'd be one thing if that was an outlier of a performance, but it's not. It's who Bama's kind of been and the issues that you worried about playing teams as talented as LSU. And, I think it's just an instance of everything that's hurt them at times, just kind of all adding up and hurting them at various times throughout that game. And whether you want to point to their lack of playmakers as compared to years past, or you want to point to wherever you want to point, it doesn't really matter. You're pointing at LSU in the win column. And, Alabama, I haven't bought into the whole, Nick Saban's lost his touch, and is this his last year? Because, we've been – I just hate when people do things and they do it for like 4 years and then it finally happens. Like, see, I told you. And it's like, you did it for 4 years. You were wrong 4 years before it actually was right. So I don't buy into I told you. But for those who maybe this year started the whole Saban's lost his touch, or maybe it's the last year. Maybe there is something to that. Maybe he is slipping a little bit. Maybe he's losing some level of interest compared to years past. Certainly, they've slipped a little bit in terms of in terms of their talent and just overall team. And I don't know what that ultimately leads to, but I'm open to those questions. I wonder myself, just because there's just something missing. That it factor's missing from this program right now.
Yeah, look, but if you're surprised if he retires, say 3 years from now when he's in his mid-70s,
yeah,
it was because of what was going on when he mentioned the NIL and people thought that he had lost his edge. And, you're right. It's not that people really think Nick Saban has had the game pass him by. They're hoping. They want.
That's what it's been
Nick Saban
until now.
To have the game pass him
now
by.
It's as if it's actually more than hope.
Yeah.
But yes, it's been hope for 2.5, 3 years. If probably longer than that, you can go back to people predicting he would, be on his last legs.
Clemson kind of got him.
Yeah, but now it's okay, now you really kind of look at it and you go, okay, maybe there is something to that at this point. We'll see.
Well, let me ask you this. Okay, so Texas is ranked, and they had a really nice win in Manhattan. They lost to Tech at the end. They lost to Alabama at the end, and they lost to Oklahoma State at the end. Alabama's lost twice by 4 points. Now,
Yeah.
we're not used to them doing that to the number 6 and number 10 team at what was the number 1 ranked team in the country.
Yeah, but but Alabama's living where most teams live now,
But then,
right?
yeah,
Which
but
is in
they
close
also
games
didn't look right against A&M, and that's kind of like
and they
thrown in
also
there.
don't miss the playoff. And
Yeah.
they're going to miss the playoff.
Yeah,
And so that's where you start to go, okay, well, now that's falling.
well,
and
By the way, that's nothing wrong with that.
And
either.
right now, if LSU wins out, they will go to the SEC championship game.
Yep.
And they'll miss that too. So it's not just Alabama. You lose this A game and it's out of they're now.
it was like a quadruple whammy what happened on Saturday. Yeah.
Exactly. Number 3, which Notre Dame team shows up to play Clemson? The good one.
Yeah.
The really dang good one shows up. The
Yeah,
one
that was
that's
a boat
confident
race.
and tough. They're playing beamer ball there a little bit at Notre Dame. They're blocking punts all over the place. From the block punt on, they absolutely just ripped Clemson's guts out. And Clemson was teetering on the brink. I just thought that they had maybe made it through those parts where they were going to lose. And then Notre Dame comes up and says, no, we've got them. And that's where it was. That was a really unbelievable game that Notre Dame played on Saturday night. And, Clemson now on the outside looking at the playoffs. Could they find their way back in? Yeah, but they're going to have to really be consistent and good on the way out, and they're going to have to thump North Carolina, I think, in the ACC title game. And I don't think anybody's thumping North Carolina. You might be able to beat them, but the way that Drake May is playing right now, you're going to get their best shot.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how the committee justifies Clemson over TCU tomorrow night. Something about how, well, it wasn't that bad of a loss or something, But, I mean, no, that argument from last week, that's why, the very first rankings, I was like, let's just let this thing play out. Well, here it is a week later, and it's like all the stuff people were, ranting about 5 days ago, it's all settled. A lot of it's settled already. Clemson's out of the way now. They're not, done in terms of the ACC and all that stuff, but they're taking some steps down now after that butt whooping. And yeah, this was surprising. I mean, not surprising that Notre Dame won, but surprising it was as one-sided as it was. And as you mentioned, I mean, it was a couple of plays really in a short time frame. A block kick that you returned for a touchdown and a pick six, just huge plays that Notre Dame's offense didn't have to go out and win this game for them because special teams and defense made some plays and scored some points too. And so it wasn't on Drew Pine and the Irish offense to have to win this game. They got some help, played complimentary football, and were able to bust this thing open and grind it on out to a nice, comfortable win. And kudos to the Irish and Marcus Freeman. That was a heck of a showing and an all-time bad performance by Dabo and company, but I think he acknowledged that and was pretty gracious in the loss and admitting, they got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, number 2. And
Cade Klubnik's nowhere near the guy, not even close. We've known that every time he's appeared so far, but it was even more apparent again when we saw him out there on Saturday.
Number 2, can Jimbo Fisher keep up his streak against the Gators? This is for you, sir, blah, blah, blah. In my best Arrested Development tenor as Ron Howard, he can't. He cannot. He did not. That game was close for a little bit, but the Gators whopped the Aggies badly.
Early on, and then Richardson had 3 touchdowns. One of them was long. One of the things that was interesting about that morning to me is that you had the story from Pete Thamel that A&M had an issue and an outbreak of flu. And okay, I think a lot of people did over the weekend. It's interesting how that story came out, and Dave Aranda did not mention it, and you didn't know. You knew that something. Why didn't Richard Reese get more carries? Squirrel was great. And, I don't know. But he did mention that after the game, but it wasn't floated out there prior to the game. And I'm not saying this was, in case, because I didn't think they'd beat Florida anyway. But you wonder about that being floated out Saturday morning as, by the way, we have to deal with this.
Well, I mean, it was reported by a bunch of people on Twitter and whatnot before the games kicked off. So clearly somebody put the message out we're down or they're down bad or whatever it was. Because, we didn't know Baylor had any type of a flu bug, and clearly it wasn't to the extent of A&M's, but still we didn't know about it till the game was over. I mean, there was no sign or whisper of it before the game. Maybe on Sikkim 365 there was, but outside of that, publicly, there was not anything. So, I don't know. I don't know what to make of A&M right now, dude. I'll be totally honest with you. The recruiting's starting to get shaky. That's basically what you have to live on at the moment because you don't have anything from this season to live on. So, I don't know.
Well, look,
this is bad.
Here's the thing about NIL is eventually in a fairly competitive marketplace, it's going to balance itself out to where yeah, you might get it. Like a bunch of money is going to be a bunch of money, and you're going to start going like for Arch Manning is a good example in that he already has money and he was going to make money in NIL no matter where it goes.
Right.
And so there's going to be a lot of players like that, and a lot of players that Jimbo Fisher is recruiting are going to make NIL money wherever they go. When you're getting 5-star dudes, they're going to make NIL money wherever they go, and the amounts might be, you might have to kind of like step up a little bit, but you're going to. But to that end, Arch Manning went to Texas because it's where he wanted to be.
No, yeah, and here's the thing. That's my point. The NIL money maybe influences like a stock market, gets a bump every once in a while based on whatever's going on. But in the end, there's going to be decommitments. Based on not so much, there's decommitments. You have a team that was the hot team, the team that was all the glitz and glamour, at least supposedly. Now you have a team that's fading in distress. And you know what? He might end up, Anthony Hill might end up in Austin, probably will. I don't know, maybe. So, yeah, it's the same as always, except that now money is involved.
Yeah.
Oh, there might have been involved in
But
it.
again, I think you're going to be
stupid.
You're going to be splitting
Money's
hairs.
publicly talked about as opposed to just like, oh, that's not happening. Yeah, I mean, you can't buy a championship. You have to have other intangibles like culture, for one. You have to have a quarterback. So all that recruiting's great, but if you don't have a quarterback that can get through a season or a game without having to go to the other injured guy or go to the other injured guy, then you're still going to be hurt no matter what. So, yeah, if you're going to spend some NIL money, go get a couple quarterbacks for starters. That's where I would begin, and then, go out from there. But, we'll see with Connor Wegman. Like, it just feels so disjointed down there right now, man. Yeah. It just feels totally off, and I don't know how quick of a fix that is.
Throwing towels in the dryer. I've got a question about, if you don't mind, Alabama, LSU. Why did Saban start chasing the 2-point conversions? Did you notice that? In the fourth quarter, they took the lead 15-14, 13 minutes left, and they went for 2. I can see that. Then they took the lead 21-17 and went for 2. Yeah, that you're up 6, but I just think that in the end, you start chasing that 2-point conversion or a blocked extra point, and it can cost you. And look,
it absolutely can. I don't get it. Would have been great to bring it up 2 topics ago, Smokey.
I know. I just happened to see it, though.
Number 1.
I won't say another one.
No, does Georgia-Tennessee winner matter? TBD. You guys made great points on this. I brought it up just because there was the scenario where the loser of this game still gets in the playoff, and that still might happen. But, I think it certainly matters in that Georgia has now, with wins over Tennessee and Oregon, and the way that they beat them both, really there's no argument, not that there would have been, that you can make against Georgia, even if they lose in the SEC championship game now, which who knows will happen. They're likely at this point they would play LSU if that were today.
Yeah, I mean, it mattered. It mattered a lot. Hendon Hooker's not going to win a Heisman because of it. Jalen Hyatt, I don't know, he still might win the Biletnikoff. I'm not sure about that, but yeah, I mean, you can just tell by the tone of today. I mean, I didn't have to be in Knoxville to feel the energy pulsing out of that place a week ago, and I don't have to be in Knoxville to feel the complete lack of it today. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but they're in Tennessee all over my timeline today. And, they've had a great run. They can still close it out on a really strong note. I mean, it's just one loss for them. But, yeah, it kind of dashed their hopes a bit, and they've got to really cross their fingers that somehow – all hell breaks loose in these last 3 weeks somehow, but that's very unlikely. So that was a big one, and huge loss for Tennessee that they'll learn from, I'm sure, but it's a major win for the Bulldogs. Huge for them.
All right.
Yep, that's it.
Paul, very well done. Thank you very much. What a weekend it was in college football. We tried to run through all of it as much as we could. Thank you, and the chat room and also the text line today for what you're doing. Garrett Ross, thank you, buddy. Running a little bit later than normal. Jacob Wilson, Jack McKenzie, Emery Winter, Levi Caraway. Back at it tomorrow. Hey, a note. Wednesday, we have former Kansas State quarterback Michael Bishop as they play Baylor Saturday night in Waco. So he'll be one of our guests on the show, among much more. For Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, for you. And also our amazing sponsors, I'm David Smoak. Good night.